Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Proposed to Momo Yaoyorozu and Got Friendzoned Part 2. Before we start, please go support cismomusic for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. Kendo Bao. Chapter 01. Momo, just answer my question. That time the brunette just looked at the freckled boy straight in her eyes. Momo would only have her hand on her chest. Izuku would get closer until he was very close to Momo's face. Momo only had a small blush. Izuku would quietly say, "Do you want to hear my answer?" Momo would just nod her head. "Izuku, here's my answer." The freckled boy would get closer and closer to Momo's lips. The brunette would have a big blush while her pulse had accelerated. Izuku, being centimeters from the brunette's lips, would say, "I love you so close and yet you are so far away. I swear I love you. I have loved you and I will always love you more than anyone else. But I'm not going to try anymore." Momo's eyes opened wide, her chest hurting badly. "Momo, Izuku." The freckled boy would give Momo a tender kiss on the cheek. He would get up and head towards the door. He would take the side of the door. Izuku would say, "Kendo is someone very special to me. Maybe she can reciprocate my feelings. Besides, no matter how much I wait for you, in the end your heart belongs to someone else. No matter how hard I tried to reach your heart, your words were too clear, weren't they? You will always see me as just a friend, and I know that it is not going to change." Izuku's words triggered the sadness in his heart. "Izuku, see you, Momo." The freckled man would force the door open, breaking it, and then he would leave the place, leaving the brunette alone. Momo would only have a couple of tears on her cheeks, because those words had hurt her so much. "Momo, why does my chest hurt?" It was to be expected after all. I rejected it, but still I don't want anyone to take him away from me. Tears began to wet the raven's cheeks. Izuku was walking through the hallways with his head down, without realizing that he would collide with an orange-haired girl, and they both fell to the ground. "Kendo, hey, be careful where you walk." Mendo would look up at Izuku. "Kendo, Izuku?" "Izuku, I'm sorry, Kendo, are you okay? I was distracted and ran into you." He would extend his hand to the orange-haired girl. "Kendo, sorry, I thought you were someone else." The orange-haired girl would hold Izuku's hand. Both of them connected their gaze with each other. A slight blush was noticed on the other's face, as they still had their hands together. "Kendo, well, what are you still doing here?" "Izuku, well, Izuku-sensei told me to do something and I just finished." "And you?" "Kendo, I just came from the gym. I was practicing a little. I want to improve with my quirk." "Izuku, I see. And how did it go?" "Kendo, well, something good. I guess I don't have many ideas on how to apply the abilities of my quirk." "Izuku, I see. Do you want me to help you?" "Kendo, hey, would you really help me?" "Izuku, of course. If you want, we can train at the gym this weekend, okay?" Kendo would give him a big hug in response. Such an action made the freckled boy blush. "Kendo, thanks, Izuku." Izuku would only reciprocate the hug. "Kendo, Izuku, what are you doing tomorrow?" she asked, blushing. "Izuku, well, tomorrow, if I remember correctly, your class and mine won't have classes. I guess I won't do anything," he said with his typical smile. "Kendo, then who? Do you want to go out with me tomorrow?" "Izuku, I'd love to. Then this will be our second date, right?" Those words made the orange-haired girl blush even more. "Kendo, yes, it would be our second date." "Izuku, so is it okay if we leave tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon?" Kendo, with a big smile, would say, "Of course, then we'll leave tomorrow at that time." The orange-haired girl showed a beautiful smile. Izuku, without thinking, would say, "I like it." "Kendo, huh?" "Izuku, I like that beautiful smile of yours. I'm glad to be the boy who can see it." The freckled man's words were tender. Kendo would have her face blushing. She remembered those words of Izuku. "Izuku, Picasso will envy me, because I drew the most beautiful smile in the world." Kendo would quietly say, "Baka." "Izuku, hey, did you say something, Kendo-san?" Kendo turned his back to Izuku, saying, "After all, I am your Kendo, aren't I? I want you to be the one who always makes me smile." Kendo's heartbeat had accelerated. She knew the reason. The orange-haired girl felt warm arms surrounding her, holding her gently. The green-haired girl had given her a warm hug from behind. Kendo had blushed even more. Izuku would rest his head on the orange-haired girl's shoulder while saying, "I love you, Kendo-san. Thank you for being by my side and taking care of this baka." "Kendo, fool, if you keep saying those things, I..." "Izuku, you're what?" "Kendo, nothing, baka. Please let's stay like this for a while. Your hug is very warm." "Izuku, hee, of course, Kendo-san is very warm. I love to hug you." After a few minutes they both resumed their course, walking together. "Izuku, well, I guess the boys must be waiting for me. Today we would watch a horror movie marathon in my room." "Kendo, how fun." "Izuku, do you want to join us, Kendo-san?" "Kendo, I would love that." "Izuku, then come to my room at 8, we will be waiting for you." "Kendo, okay." She would give him a tender kiss on the cheek and left for the Class B dormitories. Izuku would just give a smile and walk off to his room. The hours had passed. There were only 10 minutes left until it was 8 at night. Izuku's little group was already gathered in the freckled boy's room. They had drinks and movies they were going to watch. The boys had ordered about 8 boxes of pizza to eat. "Kaken, okay, what will we see first?" Mina and Kirishima would say. "Let's see it, the killer clown." Izuku, well, it's decided. At that point they would knock on the freckled man's door. Izuku, that must be Kendo-san. Sure enough, when Izuku opened the door he found himself facing the orange-haired girl. "Kendo, hello Izuku." Izuku would take Kendo's hand, saying, "Come in." Upon entering, Kendo would see Izuku's little group and she would greet them. They all greeted her. "Kaken, okay, we're all here now, we can start the horror marathon." Everyone shouted yes. The minutes passed while the boys tied and watched the movie. Mina was attached to Kirishima because in parts of the movie she got scared. Kendo would be sitting next to Izuku. Izuku's entire room was with the lights off. The only thing that illuminated the room was the light from the television. At one point in the movie everything went dark. Kirishima approached Mina and whispered in her ear, "You will float too." The pink-haired girl screamed in fright. The boys laughed a little. Mina with a pout began to hit Kirishima on the head while saying, "Baka baka baka, you scared me." Kirishima, while laughing, said, "I'm sorry, Mina." Izuku and Kendo laughed at the scene. So the hours passed and now the young people were seeing Paranormal Activity 4. Kendo watched as Mina was tenderly hugged by Kirishima. The orange-haired girl imagined her and Izuku hugging each other like that and blushed a little. But then she remembered that Izuku liked Momo, so she realized that she could never be like that with him. Izuku had noticed how Kendo looked at Mina and Kirishima. He noticed his friend's sad face. Without thinking, Izuku hugged her tenderly. Kendo was blushing but couldn't deny the fact that she was happy. She just sat comfortably in Izuku's arms as he watched the movie. Kaken would have noticed this and would give a slight smile. The hours had passed and it was already 2 in the morning. The boys had brought their futons to sleep in the freckled boy's room. Mina had fallen asleep hugging her boyfriend. Kaken had fallen asleep. Izuku, wow, it seems like we're the only ones awake, Kendo-san. Izuku would see Kendo, who had fallen asleep in his arms. Izuku, wow, she looks very cute while sleeping. Izuku gently picked her up and laid her down on his bed gently. The freckled boy would turn off the television and lay down next to Kendo, the moonlight coming through the window, illuminating the orange-haired girl's face. Kendo was certainly very beautiful. As Izuku looked at her, a slight blush had appeared on her cheeks. This would say, "Wow, she really is very pretty. The boy who wins her heart will be very lucky." After saying that, the freckled boy would close his eyes and fall asleep next to Kendo, who had heard the freckled boy's words. She would slowly open her eyes, staring at Izuku intently. A beautiful blush would appear on the orange-haired girl's cheeks. Kendo would join her forehead with Izuku's as she said, "Baka." And so both young people fell asleep next to each other. Chapter 2, Kiss. The next day it was 6 in the morning. The orange-haired girl had woken up. She could see how the other boys were sleeping peacefully in their futons. A big blush appeared on the orange-haired girl's face when she saw that Izuku was hugging her. Kendo would be firmly planted against Izuku's chest. Izuku rested his chin on the orange-haired girl's head. Kendo just gave a slight smile and snuggled further into Izuku's arms. Once again the orange-haired girl had closed her eyes and fell asleep again. Because they weren't going to have classes that day, and she wanted to spend more time with Izuku. The feeling that Izuku's hug caused her was warm. Since they had met that time, a feeling already known to Kendo began to awaken within her. This happened when she was near a certain green-haired boy. She knew perfectly well what she felt, but Kendo didn't want the same thing to happen to her again as that time. Although Izuku was different from her first love, she was unsure of whether to risk it for her feelings. She didn't know what to do, whether to leave things as they were or change them to be even better. Kendo had decided on the date they were going to have that she was going to risk it to tell Izuku her feelings. Well, from the first day the freckled boy got more and more into Kendo's heart. Her classmates saw how Kendo smiled more when she was next to the freckled boy. Several times they had asked her if she and he were a couple. For Kendo it would have been nice to tell them that they were a couple, but the reality was different. Their relationship was one of friends and nothing more. The question that the orange-haired girl always asked herself was, can we ever be more than just friends? Will Izuku be able to love me like he loves Momo? Thinking about those simple questions made her very sad, because she knew that for Izuku Momo she was the person who was in his heart. He himself had told her his story. He had given up her happiness to see her happy with someone else. Kendo definitely wanted him to love her like he loved her. She didn't know what to do every time he hugged her. Her heart beat faster. Maybe it will sound selfish, but Kendo wanted him to hug only her, and no one else. The hours had passed. The freckled boy began to slowly open his eyes and he would see how he hugged Kendo. Izuku couldn't help but blush at having Kendo so close. A tender look showed in Izuku's eyes as he saw how Kendo slept peacefully. To him she looked very tender while she slept. He would check the time on his cell phone and saw with surprise how it was already 9 in the morning. His friends were no longer in the room, indicating that they were awake and had gone to their rooms. The freckled boy once again set his gaze on the orange-haired girl, remembering when he had defended her from Momo. Izuku, if you lay a hand on my Kendo again, I swear I wouldn't mind breaking your arm. Izuku had said that without thinking. He also remembered the words of Kendo. So I'm your Kendo, huh? I want to always be your Kendo. Those words had momentarily accelerated Izuku's pulse and made him happy. He didn't know what the reason was, but he was certainly happy to have Kendo by his side. She had listened to him, and had been by his side as had his friends. Izuku would give a slight smile and slowly get out of bed so as not to wake up the orange-haired girl. Izuku would go into the bathroom, wash his face and stuff, then go down to the dining room and the living room. Upon arriving he could see several of his classmates, who greeted him good morning. The freckled boy had undoubtedly reciprocated the greeting, but he couldn't help but have a tick in his left eye when he saw how his group of friends looked at him with a different look than normal. Izuku approached the kitchen to get a glass of water. Mina would approach the green-haired boy and with a mischievous smile she would say, "And how did the pair of lovebirds sleep?" Hearing that, Izuku couldn't help but spit out his entire drink, while choking a little. "Izuku, don't say things like that, Mina. If someone hears them they could misinterpret it." Bakugo would approach Izuku saying, "And how would you interpret this?" He raised his cell phone showing him a photo, where Izuku hugged Kendo and both of them slept well together. "Izuku, at what time?" "Kirishima, Midoriya, what a show-off." "Izuku, are you serious, Kirishima too?" "Mina, don't worry, friend, we support your relationship." "Izuku, she and I are just friends and nothing more." "Mina, yes, friends who sleep like a couple." Izuku wouldn't say anything and would start preparing a couple of pancakes. The rich aroma reached Mina's nose. She would say, "What are you cooking, Izuku?" "Izuku, huh? I'm just making some pancakes for me and Kendo-san." "Mina, go on, are you going to bring breakfast to the house?" The pink-haired girl couldn't finish speaking as Izuku had shoved a pancake in her mouth, silencing her completely. Bakugo and Kirishima laughed at the scene. Mina, while eating the pancake, had a very cute face. After finishing eating, she would say, "It was very delicious." Izuku would place the pancakes on a couple of plates, which were on a tray, along with 2 glasses of orange juice, a bottle of chocolate syrup, and another of honey. He would carry everything and start walking. Izuku would look at Mina and say, "Baka baka baka." And he left the place. Mina would puff out her cheeks saying, "Who do you call baka? You are the baka baka baka." Arriving at his room, Izuku carefully placed the tray with breakfast on the bed. Kendo was still sleeping peacefully. "Izuku, how cute." He would touch Kendo's shoulders saying, Kendo-san, wake up." The orange-haired girl slowly opened her eyes, looking at Izuku, who gave her a tender smile. Kendo, with a big smile, would say, "Good morning, Izuku." "Izuku, did you sleep well?" Kendo remembered that she slept hugging Izuku, and with a slight blush she replied, "Yes, I slept very well next to you." Those words made the green-haired boy blush. "Izuku, well, I brought breakfast so we can have breakfast together in the room." Kendo would see the tray on the bed and the aroma of pancakes permeated the room. "Kendo, it smells delicious." "Izuku, yes, I just prepared it." "Kendo, thanks Izuku." She would get out of bed, heading to the bathroom to wash her face and stuff, plus she had let her hair down, since she always walked around with her hair up. When she left the bathroom, Izuku blushed a lot when he saw her. It was the first time he saw Kendo with her hair down. She definitely looked really beautiful. The orange-haired girl noticed how Izuku was looking at her and blushed a little. "Kendo, why are you staring at me so much, baka?" "Izuku, well, it's the first time I see you with your hair down, and you look very beautiful." The freckled boy was a little blushing. "Kendo, thanks." She would sit on the bed again. Both began to have breakfast. While they talked about various things, Kendo, without thinking, would say, "We look like a couple, having breakfast together in bed." Izuku, blushing, would say, "What did you say, Kendo-san?" Kendo, realizing what he had said, blushed a lot and quickly said, "I didn't say anything, let's keep eating breakfast." Izuku, okay. Kendo would quietly say, "Although I wish we were." Izuku managed to hear those words but didn't say anything. What was I supposed to say about his comment? He certainly loved her very much, but he still couldn't get over what he felt for Momo. After finishing breakfast, Izuku would say, "And what do we do now?" "For the rest of the day we will not have classes." "Kendo, how about we watch a movie?" "Izuku, good idea." The minutes passed. Both would be sitting on the bed watching Ko no Katachi, or in Spanish A Silent Voice. While they watched the movie, Kendo stood against Izuku, somewhat blushing. Izuku would look at her and remember that the night before he had hugged her while they watched the movie. Izuku would only give a smile and tenderly hug Kendo, who had a slight blush. She only snuggled further into the freckled boy's warm embrace, and in a low voice she would say, "Thank you?" Izuku whispered in the orange-haired girl's ear, "I think I'm spoiling you too much, but I love being like this with you, Kendo-san." Izuku hugged her from behind. Those words were enough for Kendo. She just turned around and wrapped her arms around the freckled boy's neck. While giving him a passionate kiss, Izuku had only opened his eyes wide. Chapter 3: Mixed Feelings. Kendo would separate from the kiss with his face blushing. Izuku had his face just like the orange-haired girl. "Izuku, Kendo-san." "Kendo, I'm sorry." She quickly got up to leave out of embarrassment, as she had kissed Izuku on impulse. But the freckled man grabbed her hand and pulled her towards him, sitting her next to him again. Kendo couldn't look the freckled man in the eyes. She would say in a low voice, "Sorry about that." Izuku just hugged her tenderly as he said, "I don't want to let you go, besides I wasn't bothered by what you did. It's quite the opposite, I really liked your kiss." These words made the orange-haired girl blush. "Kendo, so you're not mad at me?" "Well, I know you like Momo and I kissed you just out of the blue." "Izuku, Why would I be angry? How could I get angry? Besides, it's not every day you get a kiss from a girl as pretty as you. Kendo, am I really pretty to you? Izuku just put his forehead against Kendo's, saying, Of course, you are very pretty. That's why I don't want to let you go. You are my Kendo and no one else's. Kendo, so you don't mind if I kiss you again? Izuku, somewhat blushing, would bring his face closer to the orange-haired girl. Kendo also brought her lips closer to him slowly, joining their lips in a tender kiss. Kendo just wrapped her arms around the freckled boy's neck. Izuku gently held her waist. The kiss was long, both of their faces were flushed. They had to separate due to lack of air. A small thread of saliva joined their lips. Kendo would just put his forehead against the freckled one, saying, I like you, Izuku, I like you too much. Izuku, Kendo-san yo. Kendo, I will fight to win your heart. I know Momo is still in your heart, so I will make you fall in love with me. I will show you that I really love you and that you are the person I want to kiss every day. I want to let you know that you are the owner of my lips. She would take the freckled boy's right hand, bringing it towards her chest, exactly where her heart was located. Izuku would be very blushing. Kendo, you are the owner of my heart, Izuku. The orange-haired girl was very blushing. Izuku would remove his hand from Kendo-san's chest. Izuku, I understand, please don't do that again. If you do it later, I'll get carried away. Kendo, I wouldn't mind doing that with you. If it's with you, I'd be happy if you were the first and the only one. Izuku was blushing more than before. Kendo, after all, I fell deeply in love with you, Baka. I can't help but feel happy every time I'm with you. I like it when you hug me. You made me happy that time you said I was your Kendo. Those words made my heart race like you can't imagine. Izuku would just gently take her chin and give her a tender kiss. Kendo would only reciprocate. After having separated, Izuku would say, Let's continue watching the movie, Kendo-san. Kendo, I don't want to. I want you to keep kissing me. Your kisses make me very happy. Don't you want to kiss me? He said, making a sad face. Izuku, I hate it when you do that. I can't refuse when you make that face. Kendo just gave a big smile. Kendo, you know you are my first kiss. Izuku, really? Kendo, yes, you are the first boy I have kissed and the only one I want to kiss. Izuku just stared into her eyes. Kendo did the same. She gave a tender smile and pounced on Izuku, giving him a big kiss. The hours had passed. Izuku and Kendo had watched the movie, hugging each other tenderly. The orange-haired girl was very happy about everything that had happened. Izuku's friends hadn't bothered them all morning. On the other hand, Momo was in her room thinking about Izuku over and over again, remembering that accidental kiss they had given each other that time. Momo, why did I like it so much? Her lips were very tender. The black-haired girl's face had blushed quite a bit. Momo, why can't I stop thinking about him? Momo remembered how Kendo had taken Izuku's hand. Momo, why did it bother me when she took his hand? After all, I rejected him. He has the right to be with other people, but even so, At that moment she received a message from Uraraka. Momo, hey, it's Uraraka-san. I wonder what she wants? Momo saw the message and saw that he was asking her to meet at a small cafe in the city. Momo responded saying that she was already on her way. When the children did not have classes, some of them went to see their families or went out. The brunette got dressed and went out to where her friend was waiting for her. When she arrived, she could see the brunette sitting inside the store waiting for her with Tsuyu. Momo, upon arriving with Uraraka, would say, Sorry I took a little while, Uraraka-san and Tsuyu-chan. Uraraka, it's okay, Momo. Momo, did something happen for you to invite me to this place? Uraraka and Tsuyu looked at each other for a second, and with a sad look she would say, Well, you see, Momo, I know that you and Todoroki are dating. Well, we think it's better that you know this. Tsuyu took out her cell phone and showed her a couple of photos. Seeing those photos made Momo's eyes water a little. Uraraka saw how the brunette's eyes were watery, so she hugged her. The photos that had been shown to Momo were some where Todoroki could be seen, leaving a motel with Kami from Shiketsu's school. Both of them walked out holding hands, and they gave each other a passionate kiss. Momo, why did you do this to me? Yo. I loved him very much. Tsuyu, I never thought Todoroki was that kind of man, Jero. Uraraka, I was also very surprised when I saw him with that girl. Momo was just crying because she understood that he was just playing with her. The black-haired girl undoubtedly loved him very much, and finding out about that destroyed her quite a bit. Uraraka hugged the black-haired girl for a couple of minutes until she calmed down. Momo, I was a fool all this time. I thought he loved me, but I realized that only I believed that. Momo had a very sad expression. Tsuyu, although I think Todoroki-san doesn't want you to be near Midoriya-san, Jero. Momo, hey, and why do you say that? Tsuyu, well, you see, one afternoon I was passing through the hallway that led to the school library, when I saw Todoroki-san standing next to the entrance door to the library. Apparently he was hearing something. I just hid and he passed by me but didn't see me, he was saying. So tomorrow is Midoriya's birthday, huh? I won't let Momo spend the day with him. She's only mine and no one else's. I'll make friendship their end. I just looked at him somewhat strangely. Then I heard the library door open and I heard your voice. And I saw you pass by. After a few minutes Midoriya-san left the library, Jero. Momo opened her eyes wide upon hearing that. Momo, so it was all part of your plan? It was no coincidence that he asked me out that day. He didn't want me to spend the day with Izuku. Tears fell from her eyes, because now everything fit. Now she understood why Todoroki didn't like her spending time with Izuku. Momo, how could I be so stupid not to realize? Uraraka, don't say that, Momo-san, this wasn't your fault. Momo, I rejected Izuku for accepting that idiot Shoto. These words surprised Uraraka and Tsuyu. Tsuyu, did Midoriya-san confess to you? Momo nodded her head saying, Izuku one day invited me to the roof of the academy, and there he confessed his feelings to me. His confession was very nice, but I was in love with Shoto and I rejected him. I think that was the worst mistake I made. Uraraka, Momo-san, do you like Izuku-kun? Momo just opened her eyes wide at the brown-haired girl's question. Momo, well, these feelings I have are confusing. Tsuyu, tell me how you felt when you were next to Todoroki-san. Momo, well, I felt very happy and content because I was with the boy I liked, but something inside me told me that I was making a mistake by being with him. I'm not going to lie to you. When Izuku confessed to me, apart from me I was very happy. For some reason it made me happy to know that Izuku liked me. His words certainly made my heart race a little. The brunette brought her hand to her chest as she said, but when I told him that I liked Todoroki, I could see how he showed me a smile and said, at least let me be with you even if you don't love me. At those words my chest hurt quite a bit, apart from me hating myself for having said no to him. Several nights before going to sleep I ended up thinking about Izuku. The moments I spent by his side made me feel safe, calm and very happy inside. But lately my chest hurts quite a bit, because the other day I saw Kendo, the president of Class B, on a date with Izuku. My chest hurt quite a bit when I saw how she held her hand as if they were a couple. I don't know why, but it bothered me a lot. I'm not very good at love, but sometimes I just want Izuku to be by my side all to myself. Uraraka and Tsuyu looked at each other again and said, Momo-san, that's love. You're in love with Izuku and what you feel is jealousy of Kendo. You don't want her to be by Izuku's side because you like him. In other words, you don't want anyone to take him away from you. Momo just opened her eyes wide. A blush grew on her cheeks. She knew she finally realized what she felt for her friend, and that kiss and that feeling she felt were proof of it. Momo, I will fight to win Izuku's heart, even though I rejected him. I will ask him to give me another chance. I don't want to lose him for anything in the world. Uraraka and Tsuyu smiled at their friend, because they were going to support her in what she felt for that green-haired boy. Chapter 4. Do you still love me? Tsuyu, and what are you going to do with Todoroki-san? Jero. Momo, obviously I'm going to break up with him. I won't be his game anymore. At that Uraraka looked out the window of the cafeteria and saw how a certain green-haired man accompanied by a beautiful orange-haired girl was passing by on the other end of the street. Momo saw how the brown-haired girl looked out the window. She also turned her gaze to see that green-haired man she wanted accompanied by the person who was taking him away from her. There was that pain in the black-haired girl's chest again. She saw how Kendo grabbed Izuku's hand again, while the freckled boy gave him a big smile. Flashback. When he finished watching the movie, Kendo realized that it was already 12 noon, so she suggested they go out to eat in the city and then start their date. The freckled boy accepted Kendo's proposal, because he liked to see the orange-haired girl happy. After all, she had been by his side several times and he couldn't deny that he was beginning to feel something for his friend, because all this began with that smile and that phrase that made his heart race on that date. "So I'm your Kendo, huh? I want to always be your Kendo." Those words, along with the beautiful smile she gave him, slowly awakened a slight feeling towards her. The freckled boy was happy to have met her, although sometimes she made jokes about him. He simply wanted to get to know her better. The orange-haired girl had gone to her bedroom to change clothes to go out with the freckled boy. End of flashback. Momo just watched as the freckled boy walked by, while Kendo held his hand. "Uraraka, Momo-san, are you okay?" "Momo, huh? Yes, I guess I'll have to try harder to win her heart again." "Uraraka, do you want us to follow them?" Momo would nod her head. The three girls began to follow the pair of friends, obviously without them noticing. Izuku, as he walked next to the orange-haired girl, he looked at her out of the corner of his eye because Kendo was honestly very beautiful. She was wearing a beautiful light blue dress, leaving her hair loose. The dress was not a very elegant one, just a simple dress that highlighted the beautiful figure of the orange-haired girl. The freckled boy loved to watch how the small breeze of the wind blew through her hair, making her look very beautiful. Kendo noticed how Izuku looked at her. She crossed her gaze with his saying, "What's wrong, Izuku-kun?" "Izuku, it's nothing. I was just thinking that dress makes you look really beautiful." A tender but noticeable blush appeared on Kendo's cheeks. She lowered her gaze as she said, "Well, I wanted to look as beautiful as possible for you. I wanted to be pretty so that the boy I love could see me every second." Izuku blushed at such words. He just gently squeezed Kendo's hand and with his right hand he delicately caressed Kendo's left cheek as he said, "You will always be and remain beautiful to me, no matter what clothes you wear. At first glance you are already beautiful, Kendo-san. Thank you for letting me be by your side. Honestly, it's the first time I've held hands with a girl, but I'm happy to be able to be on a date with you again, Kendo-san." Izuku showed him a big smile. Kendo couldn't help but blush quite a bit at Izuku's words. Kendo, with a tender look, replied, "Well, we'll have more dates after this one." The orange-haired girl also gave him a warm smile. Izuku just looked at her tenderly. They arrived at a small food place. Both ordered something to eat. Momo, Tsuyu and Uraraka entered in the same way, but without being discovered, they sat at a table far away from the boys, but not so far away that they could hear their conversation. Izuku and Kendo were chatting happily while laughing a little. Momo couldn't help but feel jealous. She noticed how Kendo looked tenderly at Izuku. The green-haired boy looked very happy next to the orange-haired boy. Momo had never been on a date with Izuku. They had always gone out with other people, but they had never gone out together. Momo had just realized that. After half an hour, Izuku and Kendo left the place. After having paid the bill, obviously Izuku had paid the bill. Momo also had lunch with the girls. The brunette had paid since she had invited them. In the same way, they continued following Izuku and Kendo. The boys were walking all over the city. They had arrived at a very well-known ice cream shop. Precisely on that day, they were giving a 50% discount for couples who bought ice cream. Kendo and Izuku had intended to be a couple. They certainly weren't. But they were giving themselves a chance to be more than friends, because Kendo had told him that he wanted to win his heart. Izuku was having a great time with Kendo. She was very happy because during their date she had been able to walk hand in hand with Izuku. The boys who passed by the place stared at her, because Kendo with her hair down looked really beautiful. Izuku noticed this, so sometimes he would bring Kendo closer, holding her against his body. With these actions Kendo would blush a lot, but at the same time she felt very happy. The young men had sat on a bench eating their ice cream. Momo and the girls just watched. They had run out of money to buy ice cream, so they limited themselves to watching the couple. Izuku had told Kendo to wait a second and he would be right back. Kendo just agreed. The freckled boy got up from the bench and started walking. Momo had lost sight of him for a moment. The girls were hiding behind some bushes. Suddenly a voice surprised her, giving them a little scare. Izuku, what are you doing? And why have you been following me all day? Uraraka, Izuku-kun, well you see we. Tsuyu, Midoriya-chan is not what you think, we can explain it, Jero. Momo, well you see we. The girls were nervous because they had been discovered. Izuku, so why were they following us? Momo, well, we wanted to see how your date with Kendo-san was going. Well, you are our friend and we care about you. Izuku approached Momo's face, staring into her eyes. Momo turned slightly red. Izuku, you're lying, Momo-san. I know you well and I know when you're lying. Tell me something, you were crying, right? Your eyes are a little red, it's a sign that you've been crying. Tell me, was Todoroki the one who made you cry? Don't lie to me, Momo, tell me the truth. Was it him? Uraraka, Deku-kun, please, it is a delicate subject to discuss. Izuku just gave Momo a hug. Momo just started crying remembering the photos. Momo, I wasn't enough for Izuku, he just played with me. The brunette cried as she rested her head on the green-haired man's shoulders. Note: here Izuku would be a few centimeters taller than Momo. End of note. Izuku just comforted his friend, because even though she didn't love him, he had promised her that he would always be there to comfort her and hug her. Uraraka and Tsuyu just watched as Izuku hugged her. After a few minutes, Izuku separated from Momo and wiped away her tears. Izuku, don't cry anymore, Momo-san, I'm here for you. After all, I'm your friend and I'll always be by your side. Momo lowered her head saying, Izuku, do you still love me? Izuku just opened his eyes wide at that question, then Kendo appeared saying, Izuku, what's wrong? The orange-haired girl saw how the freckled boy was with his companions. Chapter 5, The Way of Loving You, I've already lost the taste for it. Momo just looked into Izuku's eyes waiting for an answer. Kendo, Izuku. Izuku, it's okay, Kendo-san, I just ran into the girls who were walking around this area. Isn't that right, girls? The girls understood the freckled man's words. Uraraka, what Izuku says is true, we ran into him here. So they're on a date? The brown-haired girl asked to cover up. Kendo, I see. She approached Izuku and hugged him from behind, saying, If my Izuku and I are on a date. It hurt the brunette to see how she hugged the green-haired man. Izuku, okay girls, see you later, Kendo and I are going to continue with our date. The freckled boy was about to start walking, but Momo stopped him, holding him by the shirt. Momo, you still haven't given me an answer. Kendo looked at Izuku saying, What answer, Izuku? Izuku just took a breath saying, I ask you the same, Momo? Tell me, what would you answer me? Momo, I. Izuku, see you, Momo. After saying that, the freckled man held Kendo's hand and started walking. Kendo blushed but intertwined her fingers with Izuku's, joining their hands in a warm handshake. The orange-haired girl looked at Izuku and with a tender and sweet voice said, Thank you? Izuku, why are you thanking me? Kendo, for coming out and being by my side, you definitely really make me happy, Izuku. I don't regret having fallen in love with you. The orange-haired girl just gave him a warm hug. Izuku felt his heart race at those words and that hug, feeling like something inside him was telling him not to let her go, to kiss her with all the desire in the world. As they separated from the hug, Kendo gave her a tender kiss on her cheeks. She moved a few inches away from the freckled man's face and whispered, You are everything to me. Kendo showed a warm smile. After that, the young people went for a walk through an amusement park until night fell. They were walking through the amusement park eating cotton candy. The orange-haired girl showed a big smile as she walked hand in hand with Izuku. They saw that there was a photo booth. The orange-haired girl dragged Izuku to the booth and they both entered. Once inside, they had to select whether it was a group photo, a photo of friends, or a photo of a couple. Kendo was about to select the one with friends, but Izuku selected the one with couples. Kendo, Izuku, why did you choose that option? She asked, somewhat blushing. Izuku, well, we're on a date, right? Plus we've already kissed, so I guess this option is okay, right? Kendo just nodded his head. They looked at a small screen in the booth, which indicated that they had to pose as couples. In the first image, they both had to make a heart with their hands. In the second, they had to hug each other from behind. Izuku, somewhat blushing, hugged her from behind, bringing his hands to the orange-haired girl's abdomen, where she intertwined her fingers with his. No doubt they were both blushing. Kendo just wanted that hug to last forever. In the next photo they had to kiss. Kendo, you don't have to do it if you don't want to, Izuku. I won't force you to kiss me if you don't want to. After all, I haven't earned a place in your heart yet. The orange-haired girl's words were somewhat sad. Kendo, she asked you if you still love her, right, Izuku? Izuku, did you hear Momo's question? Kendo, I know you still love her. I know she's very pretty. Sometimes I think I won't be able to win against her. After all, she is your first love, isn't she, eh? Kendo couldn't finish speaking as he felt Izuku take over his lips in a big kiss. Kendo was blushing a lot, but she just continued the kiss. The kiss was very long, and with some passion. When they separated, Izuku only said to her, I'm sorry, my heart was telling me to kiss you with all my might. I honestly couldn't stand another second without feeling your lips on mine. Kendo was blushing deeply at those words. Their faces were very close. Izuku, may I? Kendo wrapped his arms around the freckled boy's neck, as he said, You can always kiss me, Baka. My lips will always be yours, as will my heart. They both gave each other a big kiss without realizing that the photo booth had already released all the photos for them to see. After separating, they would both take photos and leave the place. They had spent the whole day walking around the city, both of them walking through the streets holding hands. Upon arriving at the academy, they headed to Izuku's room, as it was already night. Fortunately, the bedrooms were empty, as several boys were not there. Kendo went to her room to take a bath and change her clothes. The orange-haired girl was very happy. Izuku went in to take a shower. After a few minutes, the freckled boy was already changed, waiting for a certain orange-haired girl. Well, Kendo wanted to sleep next to Izuku again. The freckled boy couldn't refuse the request of that girl who took the time to show him her love and to love him no matter how damaged he was. While Izuku was waiting for her, someone knocked on his door. Izuku, I see that it is already here. He got up from his bed and went to open the door, but his eyes met a black-haired girl. She was wearing black shorts and a red long-sleeved shirt and had her hair loose. Honestly, this would look very beautiful. Izuku, Momo-san, what are you doing here? Momo stared into Izuku's eyes, saying, Why, oh, I want to know if. Is there still room in your heart for me? Izuku, and me, did I ever have a place in yours? Have you ever thought about my feelings? Momo, Izuku, even though I already knew that you could never reciprocate my feelings, I told you how I felt. I stepped aside from your path, because I knew that no matter how long I stayed on it, you would never take my hand to walk with me. And what hurt me the most was that you never cared about how I might have felt. Although I can't blame you for my disappointments. When I was the one who put you on the highest pedestal. Tell me, do you like me? Momo, I know it's late, but I realized how much I like you when someone is taking you away from me. Her eyes began to water with every word he said. Izuku, you didn't fall in love, but with how I am with you. Momo, you don't love me anymore? Izuku, I never stopped loving you. Just stop insisting. Apart from that, my eyes always saw you. Like a work of art not made for me. But the loser is okay, and I learned by losing that you should let go of what you love if it only makes you suffer. Nowadays I don't write to you, much less look for you. Well, the way I love you. I've already lost my taste for it. Chapter 6, End. Momo felt a great pain appear in her chest, as those simple words hurt her a lot. She understood that she had already lost him. She had lost the boy who once loved her with such passion, and now that love was extinguished without leaving any embers of that feeling that once existed. She just couldn't blame him since she was the one who rejected him in the first place to be with another guy. If only he had told her that if that time now she could be feeling his lips on hers, she could spend every night by his side and feel that love she so longed to feel. Momo, despite her heart being broken and tears falling down her cheeks, raised her gaze and showed a slight smile, saying, "I see. It's too late to ask you to give me a second chance. I really was a fool to have rejected you. I didn't know how to value the love you gave me, and that was the biggest mistake in my life. I guess Kendo realized how wonderful and special you are, that's why she fell in love with you. And I can't blame her. In the end, when I fell in love with you, it was too late. It was too late to feel your lips, to feel your hugs. It was too late to be able to tell you how much I love you. Just like you got out of the way so I could be happy with Todoroki, now I'm the one who has to get out of the way so you can be happy with Kendo. And I know that she will value you more than I do. I know that with her you will be able to feel the love that I was not able to give you. But if it's not too much to ask, can you still be by my side and be my friend? Why? I don't want to lose you completely. I couldn't bear to lose you completely. So please let me be by your side as your friend. Will you leave me?" Izuku just gave a slight smile and hugged the brunette, saying, "Of course, Momo-san, I will always be there for you. After all, you are my best friend." At that moment, Mina would pass through the other end of the hallway, having heard the last thing the freckled man had said. This one with a tender pout would say, "Hey Izuku, I thought I was your best friend." "Izuku, if you are Mina, now go to sleep." Mina left with a smile on her face. Izuku and Momo just let out a little laugh at the scene. Momo separated from the hug, saying, "Well, I'd better go to my room. Goodbye, Izuku." "Izuku, goodbye, Momo-san." At that, Momo approached Izuku and gave him a short kiss on the lips and left with a slight blush. Izuku just gave a smile and went back into his room. Momo was heading through the bedroom hallways and stopped as she said, "Take care of Izuku. Yes, he chose you. Please don't hurt him, don't do him like me." I know you heard the whole Kendo conversation. Kendo was standing at the side of the hallway. "Kendo, Izuku is the person I love the most. I would never hurt him." Momo just continued on her way until she reached her room. Kendo just started walking to the freckled boy's room. When she arrived, she knocked on the door, and her heart couldn't help but race when she saw how, when the door opened, a head of green hair was revealed. When Izuku saw Kendo, he just hugged her tenderly. Kendo blushed at that action but reciprocated the hug. "Izuku, you finally arrived, come in." The freckled man took her by the hand and they both entered the room. The young people sat down to watch some movies, both hugging each other tenderly. After watching the movies, they both lay down. Kendo snuggled up to Izuku. The green-haired boy just smiled and hugged her waist tenderly. "Kendo, give me a goodnight kiss," she said with a beautiful blush. "Izuku, how cute." He approached her lips, giving her a passionate kiss. The kiss was long because the orange-haired girl didn't want to cut it. She wanted to continue feeling the lips of the person she loved on hers. When she separated, she asked, "What are we now, Izuku?" "Izuku, what do you mean we are?" "Kendo, well, I mean, you and I already kissed and all that, but we're not boyfriends yet." "What are we? Are we friends with benefits?" I asked with a mischievous smile. Izuku didn't answer anything. "Kendo, sorry for asking something like that now. But I want to know if you love me like I love you. It's funny, when my first love was a failure, I said I wasn't going to fail in love again, but then you came along, and everything changed. I fell in love with you and I couldn't help it." "Izuku, Kendo, I'm sorry. I can't answer that question yet." "Kendo, I see, sorry for pressing you." After that, both young people slept tenderly embraced. Since that day, 2 weeks had passed, during which Izuku and Kendo had gone on several dates. Although it hurt Momo to accept that she had lost Izuku, she was happy to see her friend with someone who had truly made him happy. One day Izuku asked Momo for a favor. the brunette without hesitation agreed to help him. One Friday night Izuku had invited Kendo to the beach. That day the sky was brightly lit by the light of the moon and the thousands of stars that made it up. Kendo arrived at the beach at the time indicated by the green-haired boy. Upon arriving he could see Izuku sitting on the sand. She approached stealthily and hugged him from behind, surprising him. Kendo, sorry to keep you waiting Izuku. Izuku, it's okay Kendo. Kendo, why did you invite me to this place? Izuku, well I wanted to answer the question you asked me 2 weeks ago. Kendo, I see then. Izuku, I love you as friends. Kendo, somewhat sad at that answer, said, I see. Why? The orange-haired girl was silenced by a tender kiss on the lips from the freckled boy. As Izuku separated, he replied, let me finish talking. I love you as friends who live together, get married, have children and die holding hands. That's how I love you. I'll be brief, I want you all to myself. So if I'm enough for you, please go out with me. Kendo is about shedding tears of happiness. Izuku, oh right. He took a small box out of his pocket, and when he opened it, he revealed a beautiful engagement ring. Izuku, I couldn't answer you before because I needed this first. I know we're still young, but once we graduate from the academy I want to marry you. I want you to be my wife Kendo-san. Of course, only if you accept me. Kendo was shedding several tears of happiness, and simply lunged at Izuku, hugging him tenderly, and with a broken voice she said, Yes, I want to be your wife Izuku, that's what I want most. I want to start a family with you, love. Izuku hugged her tightly after they both gave each other a warm kiss under the moonlight. Well, now their relationship was official, they were a real couple. In the end her feelings were finally reciprocated. Without realizing it, a beautiful girl had seen everything and would say, Did I tell you or not, in this reality your feelings would be reciprocated Izuku? The beautiful girl just gave a warm smile. Eli's arch. My people, so that you understand the story, the Eli arc will start from chapter 12 of the Momo arc. The story will be different from the original. I hope you understand it. Well, without taking up any more of your time, I'll let you read the first chapter of this new arc. The waifu Eli, smiling face with heart eyes, smiling face with heart eyes, smiling face with heart eyes. It is worth mentioning that in these alternative endings Izuku ends up staying in the reality he created. These arcs are canonical. Everyone chooses their favorite arc as an ending. Therefore, in his original reality, everyone would forget about Izuku as if he had never existed. Let's clarify this. Kaken, go get him. Momo would arrive at the airport. Being a Yaoyorozu, she was quite well known, so she was able to pass without problems. She quickly went to the platform of the plane in which the freckled boy was traveling. Upon arriving, Momo would see how Izuku's plane was already taking off from the platform. Momo had lost him. She had arrived late. Izuku would take a look out of the plane window. He would see how the brunette was on the side of the platform. Izuku would quietly say, Goodbye, Momo. The plane had left. Momo would just fall to the ground, bursting into tears. The brunette was undoubtedly regretting everything. She regretted not having been faithful to her true feelings, and because of her she lost her best friend, the boy who truly came to love her for just the way she was. It was too late. There was no turning back. His eyes could only watch as the plane moved further and further away, separating them both from their lives. On the plane Izuku was sleeping because he wanted to forget his emotions for a while. It was undoubtedly the most difficult decision he had made, but he had been hurt by the words that Momo and Kendo had told him. In the freckled man's dream he found himself in a very dark place like nothingness itself. Izuku, where am I? He wanted to walk but he couldn't. It was as if his body wasn't responding. He could notice how from one second to the next the place had changed. Now he was in a kind of forest which was completely destroyed. Izuku noticed a presence that was at his side, and as best he could, he turned his head, seeing a beautiful woman with black hair like her eyes and a well-worked body. The beautiful girl would look at him with some tears and point to the front, pointing with her right hand. Izuku, why are you crying? He looked where his arm was pointing, and his eyes opened wide when he saw in front of his eyes a subject that at first glance was intimidating. Tears began to fall from his eyes as All Might was held by the neck while he slowly faded away as if he were ash. All Might looked at Izuku and with a sad look he would say, "Forgive me, Shonen. I won't be able to continue accompanying you on your journey as heroes. Goodbye one for all, goodbye forever, Shonen." Izuku reached out his hand trying to reach All Might while screaming, "All Might." Izuku woke up as All Might had woken him up. Izuku slowly opened his eyes looking at his mentor who was looking at him somewhat worried. "All Might, Shonen, are you okay? Why are you crying?" Izuku brought his hands to his face, noticing tears falling from his eyes. "All Might, it seems like you were having a shonen nightmare. Thank goodness you woke up." Izuku didn't want to say anything about what he had seen, so he just said, "I'm sorry, I had a bad dream." "All Might, everything is fine now, we are almost there." Izuku looked out the window seeing a beautiful view. "All Might, first we will go see two people and then we will go to our true destination. I bet you'll be surprised when you get to Shonen." Izuku, sure. He couldn't help but wonder what he had seen and why it all felt so real. After a few hours they arrived at the island. Izuku was very excited to see how beautiful the island was. All Might looked around for two people in particular. There were quite a few people on the island, and in the distance you could see a beautiful blonde jumping on a small trampoline. The blonde jumped into All Might's arms in a big hug while saying, "Uncle Might." All Might grabbed the girl and lifted her into the air saying, "Melissa, look how much you've grown, you're already a young lady. Tell me, how have you been?" Izuku just looked at the blonde somewhat strangely. "Melissa, Uncle Might, who's the guy next to you?" "All Might, it's true, Melissa, he is my student Izuku Midoriya. Shonen, she is my niece Melissa Shield." "Izuku, nice to meet you, Miss Melissa." "Melissa, likewise." The blonde began to look at Izuku from various angles, asking, "Excuse me, what kind of quirk do you have?" Izuku, well. "All Might, Melissa, I think we should go. I can't wait to see David. I'm sure he'll be happy to see me." Melissa, "Oh yes, that's right, please follow me." All Might and Izuku followed the blonde who guided them on a short tour of the island. As they walked, she told them that today there was going to be a ceremony celebrating all the scientific progress that had been made to help people, not to mention that the largest investor on this island was going to come today. "She has invested in my dad's projects with great confidence. My dad loves her almost like a daughter. She is undoubtedly a good person." Also, when I mentioned to him that the symbol of peace was going to be present on the island, he couldn't help but get excited. Meanwhile, a beautiful brunette with beautiful blue eyes was arriving at island on a private plane. A flight attendant on the plane would say, "I see you very happy today, Miss Eli. Why is that?" Eli, "Oh well, I don't think today will be a different day in my life. For some reason I feel happier than ever. I can't wait to get to the island." Chapter 2, Under the Rain We Meet Again. Izuku and All Might had arrived at a building where David worked. The meeting would be just like the one in the movie. Melissa would take Izuku to tour the island while All Might and David caught up. The green-haired boy was a little nervous about being alone with Melissa. They were watching the inventions like in the original story, with the difference that here Class 1A would not be there. "Melissa, and tell me, Izuku, are you having fun?" Izuku, "Oh yeah, everything here is great. I always dreamed of visiting island." Melissa, "I'm glad you're having fun. Tell me, how long will you be staying here?" Izuku, Well, we are only here for a few days, then we will leave." Melissa, "I see, then I will make sure that your stay here is the best." The blonde gave him a tender smile. Izuku, seeing that smile, remembered Mina, since the pink-haired girl always smiled at him that way. He could only reciprocate in the same way. They continued talking and walking around the island. Little by little they became more confident with each other. Sometimes they both said the same thing at the same time and laughed. Meanwhile, a certain brunette had already arrived at island and was now heading to her parents' house since they lived on that island. Seeing all the people on the island made her happy. She couldn't wait to go out and explore the island and see all the new inventions they had made. That was something that fascinated her. plus she had to go see her friend Melissa and catch up with her. Meanwhile, with a certain black girl in her room holding a white envelope in her hands, her eyes had opened wide when she saw that it was a letter. The brunette began to read the letter, which said, "For Momo. Hi, I knew you didn't love me, but even though I knew it, I couldn't stop getting emotional every time you wrote to me, every time you talked to me, every time you looked at me. You were the best thing that could have happened to me. I am writing this letter to thank you. I thank you for having given me so many beautiful moments at your side. I do not regret having kissed you that night. I would like to be able to sleep next to you again, but I know that it will no longer be possible. But that day you made me the happiest man in the world. I will always remember the tenderness and the caresses of your lips. In the end, destiny took me away from you, and that made me realize that the problem is not your absence. The problem is that I keep waiting for you. I wait for you with the hope that you will come to my side, but I only lie to myself. In my dreams you are mine, but in my life you are my dream. An unattainable dream is one of those dreams that will never come true. I was left wanting us to be the best love story, but we were the story of an unrequited love. Do you know what was the saddest thing in my life? It was thinking that you might like me. Sometimes I wonder, what harm did I do to not deserve your love? But in the end I understood that my heart was worthless to you. I regretted that I could never give you anything of value or luxury. The only thing I could offer you was my heart, but that was a bit poor for you, right? And what else do you want me to tell you? It takes courage to smile even if your heart doesn't tell you to. You get the idea of that thought. Small words can kill big feelings in you. You killed me. Today I say goodbye to you and to the feelings I had for you. I wish you the best from the bottom of my heart. Goodbye, Miss Momo Yaoyorozu." Momo just cried because of those words. She knew that the kiss they had given each other was not a dream. Momo, as sorry Izuku. The brunette was only crying in her room, while in the room of a certain orange-haired girl, like the brunette, she was crying after having read the letter that Izuku had left her. On Kendo's bed was the scarf that he had given him earlier. Kendo just remembered over and over again how Izuku tried to talk to her, but she ignored him as if he didn't exist. But now that she knew the truth and that she would never be able to see him again, that he was gone, her heart couldn't take it anymore and broke. If only I had listened to him for once, maybe, and just maybe things would be different. On the other hand, Izuku and Melissa would have arrived at the place where they gave the villains challenge. The green-haired boy was excited. "Melissa, aren't you going to try?" Izuku, "Oh no, Melissa, come on Izuku, show me what you're capable of." Izuku, He saw how Melissa was making cute eyes at him, so he couldn't refuse. The green-haired man jumped down to the test site and achieved the time from the original story, finishing as number 1, surprising Melissa. But she had noticed how the green-haired man was containing his power. After that they continued walking around the island laughing, as they walked until dusk fell. Melissa learned from a message from her father that Izuku and his uncle Might were going to stay with them at her house. This made the blonde happy since she really liked Izuku. "Izuku, well, I guess it's time to go back." "Melissa, don't worry, my dad told me that you are going to stay with us. If you want, we can continue walking for a while longer." They continued walking for another hour, and then Melissa guided Izuku to her house, which was a 2-story house that was very nice and cozy. Upon arriving, both young men would be greeted by All Might and David, who informed them that the ceremony would be that night and that there would be a big dinner and dance, so the boys had to get ready. All Might had bought Izuku an elegant suit for this. After a few hours, All Might and David went to the place where everything would be celebrated since David was the host, leaving Melissa and Izuku alone. The blonde had told her dad that she would take Izuku later. David understood and left. We can see the green-haired man dressed in an elegant black suit which looked quite good on him. Behind the door of her room the blonde's voice would be heard. "Melissa, Izuku, my dad asked me to bring him some papers that he forgot. You remember how to get there, right?" "Izuku, if you don't worry Melissa, go ahead and see us there." "Melissa, okay, remember that you promised to dance with me." "Izuku, of course." The blonde left with a tender smile. The green-haired man looked at himself in the mirror and said, "So this is how my new life will begin, huh? I guess it's not so bad. I wonder what the Academy All Might will send me to will be like." He left the room on his way to the ceremony. Luckily, he remembered how to get there. When he left the house, he saw that the sky was cloudy and a few small drops of water fell on the freckled man's cheeks. "Izuku, I'd better hurry before the weather gets worse." The green-haired man began to head towards his destination, remembering Kendo's words. "I hate you, you're the worst thing that's ever happened to me, don't ever come near me again." The green-haired man had a sad look after remembering that, and said in a low voice, "I guess you'll be better off without me." The rain had started to get stronger, forcing the green-haired man to take shelter under the roof of a small shop. "Izuku, wow, he went faster, I hope he stops a bit, otherwise I won't be able to get there." He saw how a girl came running and took refuge in the same place as him. The green-haired man saw how she had a beautiful blue and black dress. That dress made the color of her brown hair stood out. The girl was a little soaked by the water. "Izuku, you were also caught in the water?" the girl would answer. "Yes, I guess today is not my day." She stopped her words when she saw the green-haired man. Yes, there was no doubt it was him. She was sure it was the same person. She couldn't forget that green hair and those freckles. She would bring her hand to the green-haired boy's cheek, saying, "Izuku." Chapter 3. Do you still remember our promise? "Izuku, if I'm Izuku, how do you know my name?" "Miss." That brown-haired girl only had watery eyes, and without thinking she hugged the green-haired boy. Izuku only blushed as much as he asked himself, "Why is she hugging me?" His eyes. "This feeling it gives me is quite familiar," the brown-haired girl would say. "I'm happy that we meet again. I really wanted to see you again, Izuku." Izuku in his thoughts would say, "Hey, we already met? But why don't I remember her? Who is she?" The green-haired man slowly separated her from him, saying, "Excuse me, miss, but I don't know you. I think you're confusing me with someone else." The brown-haired girl with a sad voice asked, "You don't remember me anymore?" His eyes showed a faint sadness. Izuku saw his eyes, and for some reason he felt bad. The green-haired man only answered, "I'm very sorry, but I don't know who you are or what your name is." That girl just lowered her head, saying, I see. "Izuku, I'm so sorry." The green-haired boy could see how the brown-haired girl raised her little finger of her right hand and with her watery eyes said, "And I, Momo Yaoyorozu, promise that no matter where you are, I promise to find you, and I promise to always be your friend, to be there when you need me no matter how much time passes. I know that we will meet again, and that day will be the happiest of my life." Those words made the green-haired boy remember an episode from his past. Flashback. We can see little Izuku carrying his friend. "Izuku, hold on, Kaken, please don't die, you're my only friend." A couple of tears fell down the freckled boy's cheeks. Izuku was walking down a not very busy street. At that moment a limousine would come behind them. Inside the limousine was a little brunette, who was bored looking out the window. The driver would say, "Cheer up, Miss Eli, you will soon see your cousin Miss Momo again." "Eli, why do we have to go back now? I wanted to stay a little longer." Eli just made a little pout. "That's where you would see little Izuku." "Eli, driver, please stop." The limo would have stopped. Eli would have rolled down the window and said, "Hey kid, what are you doing here?" Eli would see how Kaken had a lot of blood. "Izuku, please could you take us to the hospital, my friend is bleeding." Eli would quickly open the door for her. She would help load Kaken into the slime. Eli, fast driver to the hospital. Seeing this situation, he would go as quickly as possible. "Izuku, thank you very much, miss, for helping us." Eli would see Izuku's worried face. She would place her right hand on Izuku's left cheek, and that was where she saw the part of Izuku's childhood. Eli could see how Kaken had treated him. Several tears fell down her cheek. This would say, "Is he your friend?" Izuku with a big smile would say, "If he is my only friend." Eli saw the humble smile that Izuku had. When they arrived at the hospital, they were treated quickly. Izuku would thank Eli several times. Eli, Izuku, can we meet again another day? Izuku, I would love that, you helped me a lot, I am very grateful. He would raise his right little finger. Eli, what are you doing? Izuku, you have to intertwine your pinky with mine, it's the pinky promise. Eli would smile and touch his pinky with the freckled ones. Izuku, Izuku promised that no matter where you are, I promise to find you and I promise to always be your friend. Eli would only be very happy about that promise. She had undoubtedly liked the freckled man's way of being, since she had seen part of his life. She, with a tender smile and without letting go of her pinky with Izuku, said, And I, Eli Yaoyorozu, promise that no matter where you are, I promise to find you and I promise to always be your friend, to be there when you need me, no matter how much time passes. I know that we will meet again and that day will be the happiest of my life. The two young men only gave each other one last look while saying at the same time, This will be our promise as friends. End of flashback. Izuku, remembering all that, could feel a couple of tears falling from his cheeks. How was it possible that he had forgotten such an important promise to the person in front of him? If she hadn't appeared that day, her friend Kaken would have died. Izuku looked at her directly, noticing how a couple of tears began to fall down her cheeks because it was easy to know that that promise meant a lot to her. The words of that brown-haired girl broke the silence that had existed. Do you still remember her? Do you remember our promise? She asked as tears fell from her cheeks. Izuku just brought his pinky finger of his right hand closer, intertwining it with hers as he said, Forgive me, Eli. Forgive me for forgetting something so important to you. Eli, I really love. Eli felt like her hands were no longer intertwining her pinky fingers. Now Izuku was intertwining his fingers with hers in a tender hold while with his other hand he wiped the tears from the brown-haired girl's cheek. Eli just smiled tenderly as he approached him, and welcomed him in a tender and warm hug. The green-haired boy returned the hug saying, From now on we will be together like the promise we made, Eli. Eli leaned against the green-haired man's body, happy that he remembered her. The moment was tender, the hug they were giving each other seemed to be eternal, either of them wanted to separate from the other. Eli, I'm really happy to see you again, Izuku. The green-haired man only hugged her tighter as he felt her warmth consume him with every passing second. I have whispered to the hatred. You came into my life at the right time and I'm happy to have you back, Eli. I owe you more than I can give you. Chapter 4. I want to dance with you. Eli, upon hearing those words, felt a slight, warm feeling in her chest. She smiled tenderly and whispered in his ear, You also came into my life at the right time, please. Don't leave her. Izuku, I won't do it, I promise. Eli, we can. Izuku, can we? Eli, can we stay like this for a little longer? You are very warm. Izuku, we can stay as long as you want, Eli. Meanwhile, at the ceremony site, a certain blonde was worried because the green-haired man had not arrived yet. Everything was about to begin. David was welcoming people. All Might being surrounded by many people was quite normal. It was the symbol of peace that was there. All the people admired it. Melissa went outside, seeing how the rain was quite heavy. From inside, the sound of the rain could not be heard at all, so it was normal that no one said anything about it. Melissa, I hope this rain passes so Izuku can eat. By the way, I wonder why Eli hasn't arrived yet. She's the main guest of all this. Meanwhile, Izuku and Eli continued to hug each other, both slowly separating from that hug, looking at each other's eyes. Eli just smiled tenderly at the green-haired boy. Izuku, seeing that smile, couldn't help but blush slightly because that brown-haired girl was really very cute. Eli, do you think the rain will stop a bit? Izuku, maybe. If it keeps raining, I won't be able to go to the ceremony. Melissa must be waiting for me. Eli, Melissa? She asked, somewhat intrigued. Izuku, yes, Melissa Shield is a friend I made recently. Eli, you're talking about Melly. Well, that's how I call her. Izuku, are you two friends? Eli, yes, we are very good friends. I have known her for a long time. Izuku, I see. Eli, by the way, Izuku, what are you doing on island? You didn't live in Japan? Are you visiting or something? Izuku remembered the reason why he had started all this and gave a slight fake smile, saying, Yeah, well, something like that. Eli would notice that fake smile on the green-haired boy. She understood that something had happened in Izuku's life. The brown-haired boy preferred not to ask more until the green-haired boy had the confidence to tell her what had happened. Eli just hugged him tenderly, saying, Well, that doesn't matter to me anymore. I prefer to live in the present in which you and I find ourselves. She smiled tenderly at him. The green-haired girl clearly understood the brown-haired girl's words and knew it was true. If he kept remembering the past, he would never be able to get rid of those feelings that the brunette had caused him. He just hugged her, saying, If you are my present, then nothing else matters. Eli, I say the same to you. They noticed how the rain slowly stopped until a point where only a few fine drops of water fell. That was more than enough for both of them to go to their destination. Eri broke away from the hug, saying, Then Sir Izuku would like to accompany me to the ceremony, since we are both going to the same place, she said while laughing in a very beautiful way while showing him a tender look. Izuku smiled slightly, saying, It would be an honor to accompany a girl as pretty as you. He smiled kindly, not knowing that those words had brought a slight blush to the brown-haired girl. The green-haired boy saw how Eli had a slight pink tint on his cheeks, so he asked, Are you okay, Eli? It's just that your cheeks are. Eli, why yeah, I'm fine, let's go before the rain starts again. They both began to walk side by side while they began to talk about various things. Along the way, they both laughed at some of the things they said. After about 5 minutes, they had arrived at the place where Melissa met both young men who were together, since the blonde was waiting for them at the entrance of the building in which the ceremony was taking place. Eli, seeing Melissa, gave her a big hug while saying, I'm happy to see you again, Melly. The very happy blonde would reciprocate her friend's hug. Melissa, I see you guys arrived together. Do you know each other? Eli would look at the green-haired man with a warm smile as he answered, Well, he and I are friends. Melissa, oh, I see. I didn't know you were friends with Eli. Izuku. You should have told me. Izuku, sorry, I forgot. Melissa, well, what are you waiting for? Come in. It's about to start. We were waiting for you to arrive, Eli. Eli, sorry the rain took me a while. The three young men entered the place, and once inside everything began. David had welcomed Eli, causing the people and the other scientists to give him a loud applause for all the financial support he provided to the island. The brunette was a little embarrassed by the applause she was receiving, so David invited her to share a few words with the others. Eli, somewhat embarrassed, accepted, and after about 20 minutes she had a great dinner with the best chefs on the island. Izuku would be sitting at the table with David, Melissa, All Might, and Eli while they had dinner and talked about some things. All Might, Shonen, I didn't know you and Miss Eli knew each other. Izuku, oh well, I forgot to tell you. David, by the way, Izuku, All Might told me about your quirk and that you still don't fully control it without having to damage your body. That's why Melissa and I are going to modify your suit to better adapt it to your quirk. What do you say? Izuku, huh, really? That would be awesome. I can't believe you want to improve my costume. Well, I always admired your work. You made the costumes for All Might. The freckled boy began to mutter as usual, drawing a drop of sweat from All Might, who said, Shonen, you should calm down a bit. Izuku, oh yeah, I'm embarrassed, he said somewhat. Eli would just laugh a little because he found that side of the green-haired man very cute. David, well then daughter, we will have work to do. Melissa, I'll do my best. You'll see, Izuku, your suit will be the best. Izuku, I really appreciate it. All Might, Miss Eli, your last name is Yaoyorozu, right? Eli, oh yes, that's right, All Might. All Might, could it be that you are related to Miss Momo Yaoyorozu? She is my student from Japan who goes to UA Academy. At that name, Izuku couldn't help but remember her. Eli, well, she and I are cousins. All Might, I see, Miss Momo is a good student. She was a classmate of young Izuku. Eli, huh, really? Were you my cousin Izuku's classmate? Izuku didn't answer anything that caught Eli's attention. All Might, Shonen, are you not going to answer? Izuku, I'm sorry, I got lost in my thoughts. What was it you asked me, Eli? Eli, I asked you if you were my cousin Momo's friend. Izuku, oh yes it was. Eli, come on, tell me, how has she been? That question was something that the freckled boy was going to have a hard time answering. Izuku, I'm sorry, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be back in a moment. The green-haired man stood up from his spot and left with a somewhat dull look. Eli noticed this and knew that it was because they mentioned her cousin. The brown-haired girl deduced that something had happened between her and Izuku. After a few minutes, the movie had returned just in time because David was announcing the dance that was going to take place. Several couples had formed on the dance floor. Melissa approached Izuku saying, "Shall we dance?" The green-haired man gave a slight smile saying, "Of course, after all I promise you, even though I'm not very good at dancing," he said while scratching his head awkwardly. Melissa took her hand and with a tender smile she said, "Then I will guide you." The blonde took the green-haired man to the center of the dance floor, and they began to dance to the rhythm of the melody that the musicians were playing. The green-haired man was slightly blushing as he had his left hand on the blonde's waist, and with his other hand he was holding her right hand, while Melissa had her left hand on the green-haired man's right shoulder. Melissa let out a little laugh saying, "You look very cute blushing. You don't have to be so nervous, you're doing very well, Izuku." Melissa would have the same dress as in the movie. After finishing the melody, Melissa and Izuku separated. The blonde had a tender smile on her face. "Melissa, thanks for dancing with me, Izuku." "Izuku, you're welcome, thank you for guiding me." Meanwhile, a boy with platinum hair and blue eyes would approach Eli, extending his hand to ask for the next piece in the dance. Eli smiled slightly, saying, "I'm sorry, but I already have a partner to dance with." She walked towards where the green-haired man was saying, "Izuku, do you want to dance with me?" The green-haired man extended his hand, saying, "Of course, Eli." Eli grabbed the green-haired man's hand, connecting her gaze with his. They both entered the center of the dance floor, but this time the musicians played a romantic melody. The green-haired man watched as the couples around him danced differently than before. He felt Eli cling to his body, saying, "I wouldn't mind dancing this way if it's you," he said while holding the green-haired boy's hand. Chapter 5, For That Smile of Yours. Izuku could feel the warm touch of his hand that was once again intertwined with that of the brown-haired girl. The green-haired man tenderly took her by the waist, holding her closer to his body as they began to dance slowly to the rhythm of the melody. The atmosphere was for couples who were in a relationship, and coincidentally he was dancing to that tune with that brown-haired girl whom he had promised to always be with her. Izuku could feel the perfume that permeated Eli's body, a warm, sweet and pleasant smell. The brown-haired girl had her face next to the green-haired boy, almost leaning against him, because that was the position in which that kind of tunes they were danced. Both Izuku and Eli were blushing slightly as they danced, as if by fate the music had lasted longer than usual. Time that for our young people seemed to be eternal, but it is not as if they disliked that. It was quite the opposite. It was a time that they did not want to ever end. As the melody ended, they both slowly separated. Eli undoubtedly had a sweet smile on her face, a smile that, without knowing why, caused a certain happiness in Izuku. After that the ceremony continued until a certain time at night. After finishing the event, Eli and the green-haired man had to say goodbye before leaving. The brown-haired man had asked Izuku if tomorrow they could go out for a walk around the island. Izuku accepted, making the brunette happier as she said goodbye to the rest with a kind smile. Izuku, along with All Might, David and Melissa, had gone to their house. When they arrived, David and All Might went to sleep in their respective rooms. Izuku and Melissa had stayed to talk a little longer in the living room. Both were sitting on the sofa while talking about things they liked and the heroes they admired. Melissa could only smile as she watched the green-haired boy get excited whenever they talked about the quirks of various heroes. She was definitely amused to see that side of the green-haired boy. After a long talk, the green-haired man felt something fall on his left shoulder. He looked to his side and saw that Melissa had fallen asleep with her head resting on the green-haired man's shoulders. Izuku would quietly say, "And Melissa, wake up." After a few attempts, the green-haired man gave up. He was thinking about what he should do, whether to pick her up and take her to his room or not. Since he didn't want to enter the blonde's room without permission, he also didn't want them to think badly of the situation. He looked at her from the corner of his eye, seeing how part of her body was illuminated by the little moonlight that entered through the window. Without a doubt, Melissa was really pretty, and the green-haired man blushed at having her like that. He was slowly losing his grip on sleep, so he just laid down on the couch, making Melissa more comfortable on top of him. In this way, the green-haired man fell asleep on the sofa with the company of that blue-eyed blonde. The next day, the first to wake up would be Melissa. She slowly began to open her eyes. Her vision slowly cleared while a slight blush adorned her face when she saw that she was sleeping on top of that green-haired man. She was lying on the green-haired man's chest. The blonde's pulse had accelerated at that scene. She noticed how the green-haired man's hands were delicately hugging her, making her feel a warm sensation. Melissa slowly began to get up so as not to wake up the freckled boy. She checked the time on her cell phone and saw that it was already 9 in the morning. She headed towards her room when she saw a note stuck on the living room wall. Melissa took it and began to read what it said. When she finished reading it, she blushed beyond belief. Well, the note said that David and All Might had left the house early to go to the lab and start working on some things, that she had the thing alone for her and Izuku, and that they should please use protection if they were going to do something else. Melissa, Dad, how can you think something like that about your daughter? Besides, Izuku is just a friend. She told herself as she squeezed the note, somewhat embarrassed. She went to her room to take a shower and change her clothes. Half an hour had passed, and the green-haired man was beginning to wake up little by little. When he didn't see Melissa by his side, he thought that what happened last night was a dream, so he didn't give it much importance. He began to head towards the stairs towards his room when a pleasant aroma reached his nose. The green-haired man went to the kitchen since that was where the smell was coming from. When he arrived, he found Melissa, who was wearing a beautiful kitchen apron. Upon seeing the green-haired boy, she smiled at him and said, "Good morning, sleepyhead. Breakfast is almost ready." Izuku looked away somewhat nervously, saying, "Be good morning, Melissa-san." "Melissa, go take a shower. Breakfast will be ready in a few minutes, so we can sit down to eat." Izuku, "Okay, by the way, where are your dad and All Might?" Melissa, "They left early for the lab." Izuku, "So it's just going to be you and me?" Melissa was about to answer when she remembered what the note her father had left said. She turned very red, saying, "Why, yes, it'll just be you and me." Izuku, "Well then I'll go take a shower." After saying that, the green-haired man went to his room, leaving Melissa alone, who was trying to calm her blush. While the water fell down the green-haired man's body, I remembered everything that had happened before arriving at Island. It was not easy for him to forget everything he had experienced and gone through at UA. The memories and words of the woman he loved and his friend Kendo tormented him every second. The words that had come out of her lips were very hurtful to the green-haired boy. How was it possible that they had acted as if he didn't exist? If he had to do something like that, he couldn't. Sincerely, he was very kind to others. After getting out of the shower, the green-haired man changed his clothes and went down to the dining room where Melissa was waiting for him to have breakfast together. They had breakfast quietly while laughing about some of the things they were talking about. After having breakfast, the green-haired man had washed things. It was the least he could do. Although Melissa insisted that she was going to wash things, the green-haired man didn't let her. After a long fight, the green-haired man ended up winning and Melissa had to give up, but she had to accept it. She and he had connected almost instantly in their friendship. They both felt comfortable with each other's presence. The hours passed and it was already 11:30. The green-haired man had told Melissa that he was going out because he had agreed to meet Eli in the center of the island. Melissa understood and told him to have fun. She gave Izuku a copy of the house key so he could get it in case there was no one in the house. since the blonde told him that she was going to go to her father's laboratory because they had agreed to modify the green-haired man's suit, and she didn't know what time they were going to be at home, Izuku confirmed his head and before leaving the blonde gave him a tender and warm kiss on the cheek saying, "See you later." The green-haired boy just smiled and left the house, starting to walk through the streets of the island heading to the main fountain. This fountain was located in the center of the city. Meanwhile, sitting on the edges of the water fountain, Eli is waiting for the green-haired boy. The brown-haired girl was wearing a beautiful pink dress with curls on the sides, the dress reaching before reaching her knees. Honestly, she looked really beautiful. She had let her hair down. The boys who walked by just stopped to look at her because her brown hair attracted their attention. A tender smile appeared on his face as he saw a small but visible head of green hair appearing in the distance. He got up from his spot and began to run towards the green-haired boy. He could see her running towards him, but he didn't expect her to suddenly throw herself into his arms. He reacted and caught her in the air, feeling her hug him tenderly. Eli, while still hugging him, would say, "You finally arrived, Izuku." "Izuku, sorry, did I keep you waiting long?" "Eli, I've been waiting for you all this time. A few minutes are nothing, because I know you would come." Izuku at those words and at that moment could feel a strange sensation in his chest. Eli parted from him saying, "How do I look?" she asked as she walked around showing him her dress. The green-haired man looked at her carefully. She was really beautiful in his eyes. Izuku, blushing a little, would say, "Why, you look very beautiful." "Eli, really?" "Izuku, yes, really." The brown-haired girl would show a cute smile saying, "Thank you," she said while putting a lock of hair behind her right ear. Meanwhile at the UA, a certain brunette would be looking at her cell phone waiting for Izuku to answer the messages she had sent him. The brunette had a sad look. Momo would dial the green-haired man's number, calling him in the hope that he would answer. "Momo, please Izuku, answer me." From your phone you would say, "The number you dialed is not available, or is out of the area. To leave a voicemail, wait for the next sound to play." The sound of a tape recorder was heard. "Momo, please Izuku, answer my calls. Please, I need to talk to you. I need you. Please answer me," she said with a broken voice. After saying that, I hung up the call. "Momo, I don't expect you to answer me after all. I did the same to you before, but I still need to hear your voice." Tears fell from the black-haired girl's eyes. Returning with Izuku and Eli, they would be walking through several beautiful places on the island. At one point they stopped to buy a couple of ice creams. The green-haired boy had ordered chocolate and slush flavor, while Eli chose the heavenly cream and cherry flavor. Both of them put chocolate syrup on their ice creams. They went to sit on a bench under the shade of a tree. Both began to eat their ice creams while talking about things they liked. At one point Eli dropped her ice cream. The green-haired boy laughed for a moment at the brown-haired girl's bad luck. Eli turned to look at him. Izuku could see how in her eyes there were some tears threatening to come out of her eyes. Izuku smiled slightly and extended his hand, giving her his ice cream. He could see as if by magic how Eli's eyes lit up with a glow of happiness. She certainly looked really cute, he had to admit it. He watched as the brown-haired girl brought the spoon to her mouth, tasting the mint flavor while showing a really tender expression. "Eli, how delicious." She loaded some ice cream into the spoon and without thinking she placed it in the green-haired boy's mouth. Izuku blushed as much as he could because he had seen that the spoon had previously been in the brown-haired boy's mouth and was now in his mouth. Maybe she didn't realize it was an indirect kiss. But all his thoughts vanished when he saw how she looked at him tenderly with a smile while saying, "Thanks for going out with me today." Seeing that smile on her, the rest certainly stopped mattering for now. He just wanted to keep seeing her smile. Chapter 6: The New Academy? The beginning of a new story. Eli was really enjoying that moment of being with the green-haired boy. After finishing eating the ice cream, they both resumed their tour of the island. Izuku couldn't think of anything else but the indirect kiss they had given each other a moment ago. He simply couldn't help but think about it. The hours passed until dusk fell. Both young people had spent time together getting to know each other. They were both sitting under a tree that was on a small grassy hill located almost at the end of the island. having a beautiful view of the sea. The brown-haired girl, without thinking, leaned on the green-haired boy's left shoulder, letting her head rest, making the green-haired boy blush slightly. That warmth they both felt was mutual. The brown-haired girl raised her gaze, meeting the green-haired boy's eyes and saying, "Izuku, can we take a photo?" "Izuku photo?" Eli, yes, well, I want to have a photo with you. "Can't I?" he asked, making cute little eyes. The green-haired boy just looked away so as not to blush further, saying, "Okay." "Eli, thank you." She took out her phone ready to take a photo with the green-haired man. "Eli, can you hug me?" he asked in a low voice. The green-haired boy heard those words and was quite nervous and blushing, wrapping his arms around her, bringing them closer together. The green-haired boy's hands rested tenderly on the brown-haired boy's abdomen. They both had a slight pink tint on their cheeks. Eli put his right hand on the green-haired boy's hands and with his other hand he picked up the cell phone saying, "Smiles for the camera." They both took a few photos. Little by little they enjoyed each other's company more. "Eli, thank you for taking these photos with me." "Izuku, then you can pass them to me so I can advise them too." The brown-haired girl smiled tenderly at him saying, "Of course." The green-haired boy removed his hands from Eli's abdomen, but in doing so he caused her to feel a little ticklish. "Izuku, you're really ticklish, huh?" "Eli, yes, I." She couldn't finish speaking because the green-haired boy had started tickling them. Eli couldn't stand the laughter and said as best she could, "Please stop, Izuku already. Don't follow this anymore, please." She couldn't stop laughing. At one point, the brown-haired girl grabbed one of the green-haired boy's hands, causing him to lose his balance and fall on top of her, leaving them lying on the ground, their faces so close to each other. They were both staring into each other's eyes with that blush adorning their cheeks. Eli smiled tenderly, hugging the green-haired boy while she said in his ear, "Thanks for this day. I had a lot of fun with you, Izuku. I was really happy today." Izuku could feel the warmth of Eli's body. There was that faint feeling in his chest again. She certainly looked really happy at that moment. Izuku couldn't deny it. He was beginning to enjoy Eli's company. "Eli, well, how much longer do you want to be like this?" I asked as I looked at one side with a tender blush. "Izuku, I'm sorry, The freckled boy stood up and helped the brown-haired girl up, tenderly holding her hand to get up. "Eli, well, let's exchange phone numbers so I can send you the photos we took, and also, I want to have your number to talk to you when we are not together," he said in a low voice. The green-haired man took out his phone and turned it on since it had been off since the day before but with enough charge. When his cell phone turned on completely, Izuku could see that he had several missed calls from a certain black girl and an orange-haired girl. Eli managed to see his cousin's name on the green-haired man's screen, not to mention that he also saw how the green-haired man's wallpaper was a photo of him and Momo together. Izuku just deleted the notifications and exchanged numbers with the brown-haired girl. Eli was curious to know what relationship Izuku and his cousin Momo had since they looked very close in that photo. After that, they both left the place and started walking around the island again. When they reached the center of the island, they met All Might, David, and Melissa. They started walking with the couple. Melissa and Eli were walking together while talking. David had invited the brunette to dinner at his house since she was a good friend of Melissa. The blonde also insisted until Eli accepted. "All Might, Shon and I have good news for you. Once we get home, I'll tell you." Izuku, oh great. David, Izuku, your suit is almost ready. We'll finish it tomorrow. Izuku, wow, that was fast. You really are amazing, Dr. Shield. David, oh boy, I feel sorry for your words. I'm just doing my job. Also, this was a request from my great friend All Might. He has told me a lot about you and he wanted to meet you. Boy, I have hope that when All Might retires, you will be the new symbol of peace. He smiled kindly at the green-haired man. Izuku, thanks me. I will do my best not to disappoint you, Dr. Shield. As they were walking, the freckled man's cell phone began to vibrate. He saw that it was a call from Momo. His eyes became sad when he saw his name. He simply rejected the call by turning off his cell phone. After a few minutes, they arrived at the Shield house and began to prepare dinner. David was in charge of cooking. After several minutes, we can see how everyone was having dinner while talking about various things. Eli was sitting next to Izuku at one point. All Might said, "Right, Shonen, when we go to North America you will officially attend the Heroes of Tomorrow Academy." At those words Eli looked at the freckled man saying, "You will go to the same academy as me?" This news surprised All Might, who said, "Miss, I didn't know you attended that academy." "This is great, Shonen. Miss Eli will be able to give you more extensive guidance at the academy." Eli hugged the green-haired man saying, "We can spend more time together." Izuku only reciprocated his friend's hug. Melissa saw the scene and could only give a slight smile because she was happy for her green-haired friend. After dinner it was already very late, so David told the brunette that she could spend the night at her house and not to worry, that she would talk to her parents. Eli accepted and stayed to sleep in Melissa's room. They both agreed because they could catch up on girl stuff. They talked for a while until they fell asleep. It was already past midnight when a certain brown-haired girl woke up because of a slight noise coming from outside. She got up and went to the balcony of the house and could see a certain green-haired boy in the garden kicking a couple of kicks in the air. Izuku was focused on his training. Eli smiled slightly upon seeing him and went down to be with him. When they reached the garden, the green-haired man had not noticed the presence of the brown-haired woman. But his concentration would be interrupted by that warm and beautiful voice of that brown-haired girl. "Eli, can't you sleep?" Izuku turned around and found Eli wearing pajamas that Melissa had lent her. They certainly fit her well and defined her body well. Izuku blushed slightly, nodding his head. "Eli, do you mind if I stay with you?" Izuku, "Oh, of course not, Eli." She sat on the grass in the garden, her left palm hitting the grass beside her, signaling for the green-haired man to sit next to her. Izuku, somewhat blushing, sat next to her. Eli, without warning, rested his head on the green-haired boy's right shoulder, accelerating the freckled boy's pulse. They were both looking at the beautiful moon that illuminated them in the darkness of the night. "Eli, you're warm. I'm starting to like this." Izuku blushed at those words. Meanwhile, in the rooms of the Heroes of Tomorrow Academy, we can see a boy with blue hair and eyes who was looking out the window of his room saying, "So the new student was recommended by All Might himself, huh? I really want to know what he can offer if he comes from the UA Academy. Wow, this got interesting. I wonder what kind of quirk he has. Well, that doesn't matter anyway, everything always ends the same way." Returning to our protagonist, Eli would stand up saying, "Well, I'll go back to the room to sleep." Izuku, "Oh yeah, it's okay, rest, Eli." The brown-haired girl went into the house. After about 20 minutes, the green-haired girl decided to go inside. He went to the kitchen for a glass of water, and in the kitchen he ran into a certain blonde, who upon seeing him asked him, "Did you also come for a glass of water?" Izuku, "Oh yeah." Melissa poured him a glass of water, and they both talked for a little while. Melissa, "Well, I'll go to sleep until tomorrow, sleepyhead." The blonde gave him a tender kiss on the cheek and left the place, leaving the green-haired man in the kitchen. End of chapter. Extra behind the scenes. Cismo and cut. Perfect. Tomorrow we will continue with the other chapter. You did very well, Izuku. Izuku, thank you. Eli approached the director saying, "Hey director, what is this supposed to be?" he said as he threw the script over to her. "Eli, are you serious? Why are there so many scenes with Izuku and Melissa? Is this a Deku X Melissa?" "Well, no. This is my bow, so you better start doing your job really well. Got it?" Cismo, "Oh yes, I'm sorry, what happens is that I want it." Eli, "Nobody cares what you want, you understand me. Where is Eli's coffee?" She looked at Izuku saying, "So Izuku was a good take. Let me ask you something, why do you blush so much when you're with that blonde, huh?" Izuku, "Well, what happens is that she is." Eli, "Oh, I see what's happening. You say she's prettier than me, right?" Izuku, "I don't." Eli, "Do you know how many guys would die to be in your position and date me?" Eli makes the boys line up. Eli is badass. What does a pretty girl like me have to do to get a coffee here? At that point, a film assistant approached with the coffee, saying, "Here you are, Miss Eli." Eli, or Eli's coffee. She threw the coffee, saying, "I'm not going to take those fears," Eli said. Mocha hello. Voice, "I'm sorry, Miss," Eli said while cleaning. Eli, "Do I have to do everything here?" Voice, lightning. Eli, "What did you say?" Voice, "And nothing." Eli, "Are you rebelling?" Voice, "No." Eli, "You rebel against Eli?" Voice, "No, miss, excuse me please." Eli, "What makes you think I can't fire you?" Voice, "Listen to me, miss, I don't want any problems." Eli, "Hey Izuku, come here, I want to tell you something." The green-haired boy approached the brown-haired girl only to receive a slap. Eli, "Don't ever flirt with that hitch again. Did you understand?" Izuku, "I'm sorry." Eli, "Do you think this is his bow, huh?" Izuku, "The thing is, I just followed the script." Eli, "With just one call, I can have Horikoshi kill you in your story. And you're left out of the story. Do you understand?" Izuku, "I'm sorry, give me another chance." Eli, "You flirt with that hitch again and I'll send her to Pakistan." Melissa, "What's going on here, Izuku-kun?" Eli, "That's it." Eli is pissed off. Chapter 7. Answer me, All Might. Does Izuku have your quirk? After a few minutes, the green-haired man also went to his room and took a shower and laid down on his bed. He literally hadn't been paying attention to his phone, because he didn't really feel like picking it up because he knew he was going to get a message from that brunette he wanted to forget about. To tell the truth, I hadn't written to Kaken, Mina, or Kirishima either. I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to disconnect for a while. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. In his dreams, the green-haired man found himself in a completely dark place, and no matter how much he walked, he felt like he was not getting anywhere. In that great darkness, he could distinguish the plume of a girl with very shiny platinum hair. He could see how two large and beautiful wings came out of her back. That girl turned around, revealing a clock in the ocular routine of her right eye. She said a few words to him that made the green-haired man open his eyes wide. Izuku, without knowing why, tried to reach the hand that the beautiful girl extended to him. As if they both wanted to feel each other's touch. Izuku could see how the beautiful girl slowly began to fade away. Izuku, wait. Don't go. The green-haired boy suddenly opened his eyes, breathing heavily. Izuku saw how the room he was in was completely destroyed. He looked up, seeing all the rubble of what was once his room floating around him. But when he looked down, he realized that he was floating in the air while the rays of One for All frantically collided with each other. All Might, Melissa, David and Eli were at the door of where his room was looking at him. To give you an idea, Izuku destroyed his room, which was located in the corner of the second floor of the house. And the green-haired boy was floating above the house with the rubble around him. The rest of the house was fine. All Might, Shonen, are you okay? Melissa just looked at Izuku in shock, as David did. All Might was certainly surprised by what he saw because he had never seen his pupil like that. Izuku, All Might, how can I calm this down? He asked with some concern. All Might, try to relax your whole body. Izuku, I'll try. He tried to calm One for All, but he couldn't. It was as if he had no control over his body. All Might was about to say something, but he saw how Eli told him. Please, All Might, can you throw me to where Izuku is? I can calm him down. All Might, but Miss Eli is very dangerous. Eli, please trust me. All Might picked up Eli and with a little force he threw her towards the green-haired man. Eli extended his hand towards the green-haired man. Izuku, seeing how she extended her hand to catch him, remembered that dream. He extended his hand, grabbing Eli. The brown-haired girl hugged him, and in doing so the rays of One for All calmed down. The rubble fell, as did Izuku, who hugged Eli, turning his body to stop the fall, but All Might caught them both before they hit the ground. All Might, I have them both. The symbol of peace hugged them. Izuku continued to hug Eli, the brown-haired girl was not going to let him go. Melissa and David looked at this a little more highlighted. However, David had quite a few questions to ask the green-haired boy, not to mention that his house was destroyed, well, at least the room the freckled boy was staying in. All Might, Shonen, what was that just now? Izuku I. He saw how his vision became blurred and he was left unconscious. All Might and the others became worried. All Might, Shonen awakens. Shounen. Eli, Izuku, please wake up. Melissa and David quickly went down to help the green-haired boy. David, seeing the green-haired boy's condition, without thinking twice told him that it would be best to take him to his laboratory immediately, since there he would have everything necessary to take care of him. All Might accepted without thinking, and everyone headed to the laboratory immediately despite the time. Upon arriving, they quickly put the green-haired boy into a machine. Said machine could scan the entire human body thoroughly. Its objective was to find any disease or strange behavior of the cells that maintained the flow of a person's quirk. This machine had an electroencephalographic mechanism whose function was to scan brain waves. David asked everyone to leave him alone, since he would need a high level of concentration to see what was happening to the green-haired boy. Everyone understood and left the laboratory waiting in the hallway outside. Eli and Melissa were worried about the green-haired boy. All Might had an idea of what could be happening with the green-haired boy. They watched as the laboratory door swung wide open. David, All Might, can we talk alone for a moment, please? All Might saw how serious he was and approved his head. Note: All Might was in his muscular form when he stood in front of Melissa and Eli. In front of David and Izuku he returned to his thin form. End of note. David closed the doors of the laboratory. All Might returned to his thin form. David took a deep breath, looking seriously at All Might and asking, All Might, you and I are friends, right? All Might, of course, David. Why do you ask? David, then you can answer him the following. Why does Izuku have the same cells as your quirk? Maybe what I'm about to say is a little crazy, but did you pass your quirk to the boy? Izuku has your quirk, right? Tashinori. All Might just opened his eyes wide at those questions. While Izuku was trapped in a memory of the past, I remember that it was not something he had experienced. Izuku, where am I? He saw that there was a kind of court in which there were several angels with beautiful, shiny wings. The green-haired man heard the sound of a door closing behind him. He turned around and saw that behind him was the girl he had seen in his dreams, but this time he saw that she had 6 large and beautiful wings. Izuku saw how she had her hands and feet chained as if she were a prisoner. Next to her were 2 large and imposing angelic soldiers. This one is about to talk about what he saw as they walked through him, as if he himself were an illusion. I turned around to look at her. That beautiful girl was taken to the center of the great court. There was great sadness in the eyes of that beautiful angel. At that point, an imposing voice was heard from above, and everyone could see an angel that shone brighter than anything else. His mere presence imposed quite a bit of pressure. That angel said, Well, it's time to begin your punishment for breaking the sacred rules, dear sister. Chapter 8. The wheel of fate has begun to turn. All Might just looked his friend in the eyes, noticing the seriousness in him. The blonde just gave a slight sigh, saying, Yes, I passed my quirk to young Midoriya. In other words, he is the future symbol of peace. David just lowered his head. Tashinori saw this and became worried because he didn't know how his friend's reaction would be. But great was his surprise when he saw how David raised his head and gave him a slight smile, saying, Thanks for being honest with me. Now I can rest easier knowing that there is still hope for the future, he said as he looked at the green-haired man who was unconscious. Tashinori, I couldn't tell you because… David, I don't want you to give me explanations, my friend, I trust you. If you didn't tell me anything, you must have had a reason. And I know better than anyone that you don't want to put your loved ones in danger. That's why I admire you, Tashinori. Tashinori just gave his friend a hug, saying, Thanks, David. Tashinori, how is Izuku? David, he's fine. His vital signs and everything regarding his body are fine. His cells changed a little while ago, but they returned to their normal state. I can't tell you much since you will know better than me the quirk you gave him. But if you let me tell, I think his quirk is evolving at a frantic pace. I don't know the reason, but that's my deduction. Tashinori, I see. I'll have to talk to the shonen and ask him to explain to me what exactly happened to him. They both could see how the green-haired man slowly opened his eyes. His vision was blurry until he adjusted to the light of the place. Well, there was a small girl lying down. David and All Might approached the green-haired boy who had a somewhat vacant look, as if his mind and body were disconnected from each other. David took a small flashlight and shined it into the green-haired boy's pupils, saying, "How strange, his pupils are normal, but his gaze is not the same as always. Izuku, how do you feel?" The green-haired man didn't answer because his gaze was still lost. All Might took him by the shoulder and shook him slightly, saying, "Shonen, can you hear me?" Like David, I got no response. This worried those present. "David, let's give him some time alone." Tashinori nodded his head and they both left the room. Upon leaving, both Melissa and Eli approached him to ask him about the green-haired man. David told them that he had already woken up and that he was fine, but that he needed some time alone. So for the moment they couldn't see him, the news highlighted them a little, because they knew that he was fine and that was the most important thing for them. It was 3 in the morning and everyone was outside the room waiting to see the green-haired boy. David was at the side talking to All Might. But everyone could see how the green-haired man left the room. Without looking at those present, he said, "I'm going out for a walk, I need to get some fresh air." Eli and Melissa noticed how the green-haired man's voice was different. It was not the same happy voice, it had a slight tone of sadness. Melissa was about to stop him, but David stopped her. Melissa could only stay silent, understanding everything. Although it was night, the green-haired boy was walking under the beautiful island illuminated by the moonlight. Walking next to the green-haired man was a certain ebony woman with a very toned body. She held her hands tenderly behind her back, as she looked at the moonlight. The hours had passed and Izuku had not returned. David, Melissa and Eli had returned to the house to rest since All Might told them to go rest and that he would go look for the freckled boy. They agreed slightly because with the speed he had it took seconds to travel across the entire island. The next day we can see Eli and Melissa, who had fallen asleep on the living room couch together. Both slowly opened their eyes and came across a certain green-haired man who had a big smile and would say, "Good morning, sleepyheads. Breakfast is ready, so wash your faces so we can all have breakfast together." From the kitchen David and All Might said good morning to the girls. Melissa asked, "Izuku, are you okay?" Izuku, yes, sorry for worrying you yesterday, I'm sorry, but I needed to clear my mind of my thoughts, but I'm fine. Eli stared at him, and when he noticed that his friend was looking at him he gave her a tender smile that made her blush slightly. Izuku, by the way Eli, tomorrow we will leave for the Heroes of Tomorrow Academy. In a few hours I will try on the suit that Dr. Shield made for me, and after that I prepared my things to leave. Eli, I understand that you will like the academy. Hey, you said let's go? What about All Might? Izuku, oh, I didn't tell you, All Might already took care of all the paperwork, so I'll go with you and he'll return to Japan. So it'll be you and me. Is that wrong? Eli looked away, blushing slightly, saying, "P, not at all." Meanwhile at the UA Academy the boys would be in hero practices. Momo, since she knew the truth, did not speak to Shoto. Nijire, on the other hand, was waiting to receive information about the green-haired boy. She hung out a lot with Izuku's group, that is, with Mina, Kirishima and Bakugo. But unfortunately for the light blue-haired girl, none of them knew anything about the green-haired boy. On the other hand, in the Heroes of Tomorrow Academy we can see how the green-haired boy's future classmates were all lying around except for a certain red-haired boy with blue eyes who looked at all his classmates saying, "That's all for today, training is over." They stood up and said, "Yeah." That young red-haired man smiled slightly, saying, "Go rest a little, we have to work hard if we want to get our licenses, and even more now that we will face the Shiketsu Academies, the Ketsutsu, the CI Academy and finally the UA Academy. This is definitely getting interesting. with only 3 months until that day comes. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to arrive, Izuku Midoriya. Chapter 9. A smile that causes confusion. Returning to the island, those present had already finished breakfast and were heading to David's laboratory, since that was where they were going to test the freckled man's new suit. Eli had always been looking askance at the green-haired boy, because for her something had changed in him. It was a kind of feeling that she had. But she knew that the green-haired man wouldn't tell her so easily, and she also knew that she had something to do with her cousin Momo. Something had definitely happened between the two of them, because when she asked him things about her he just remained silent, or simply changed the subject. Izuku, when he noticed Eli's gaze fixed on him, turned to look at her, but the brown-haired girl immediately turned her gaze away, trying to hide it. Izuku just laughed at his friend's actions. We can see everyone present in All Might's laboratory. David had given him a suitcase with the green-haired man's suit inside. Izuku went to put it on in a separate room, while the rest went to a testing room, because that was where the green-haired man would test his suit. Izuku was quite surprised when he saw the suit that David had made for him, because it was a very cool one for him. Note: the suit was the one from the trailer for the last movie, same color and everything else. The reason is because I really like that suit and that's it. End note. Izuku put it on by putting on the hood that had the design of his first suit but in black and his green eyes, giving a more intimidating appearance, as he looked like the Deku seinen from the manga, only clean. The suit came with gloves just like the ones Melissa gave him in the original story, but with the difference that this one was black with green stripes, following the detail of the full suit. David asked through a microphone. Are you ready, Izuku? Izuku closed his eyes for a few brief seconds, then opened them and nodded his head. David, well then the test will start in 3, 2, 1. He pressed a button on a control he had in his hand, and several robots with human shapes emerged from the ground. These had red eyes, and when they saw Izuku they detected him as a threat and extended their arms, which transformed into weapons, and from these they fired several bullets that had a high voltage. To All Might's surprise, he could see how in a matter of seconds there were small fragments of green rays. Izuku sped past, dodging the bullets and destroying the robots with his kicks. All Might, his speed. David looked at the green-haired man quite excited. Eli had a slight smile. The test continued for about 15 minutes. Izuku told David that the suit was more than perfect. And I thanked him repeatedly, saddening David. All Might was proud to see the progress his successor had shown in the test. So he knew he was doing the right thing by sending him to that academy, because he knew that there he could better master one for all. After Izuku and Eli returned to the house, since David had stayed in the laboratory with All Might and Melissa. On the way home, Eli walked side by side with the freckled boy in a calm and pleasant silence. Eli, you were amazing in the test, Izuku. Izuku, somewhat nervous, replied. Well, I am, thanks, I guess. Eli noticed how nervous he became, which seemed a little strange to her. She gave him a little push, saying, Why are you so nervous? The brown-haired girl let out a small, adorable laugh. Izuku felt that strange sensation in his chest when he saw her. For a second he could see Momo smiling at him just like Eli was doing. For a few seconds he closed his eyes, and when he opened them he saw Eli looking at him tenderly. Are you okay? He asked as he came dangerously close until he was just inches away from it. Izuku, having her so close, blushed, saying, Why yes, I am fine, Eli. Eli smiled at him, saying, Okay, I'll believe you this time, but... Izuku, but? He felt Eli hug him affectionately to tell him. But if you ever need to talk, I'll be here to listen to you, and if necessary, I'll hug you as much as necessary until you feel better. And also because you are so warm and I like that, she said as she snuggled deeper into that hug. Izuku just let out a small laugh, saying, It's okay, Eli. You are warm too. She responded to reciprocate her friend's hug. Izuku in his thoughts would say, If only you had been by my side all these years, I would have fallen in love with you. But now I don't want you to let me go, nor do I want to let you go. The couple stayed hugging for a few minutes, for both it was a warm moment as they could feel each other's warmth. And after a while they separated, looking into each other's eyes. Eli, okay, let's keep walking. After all, you have to prepare your things to leave tomorrow. If we stay here it will take you longer. Izuku pulled his cheek saying. And who was the one who hugged me and didn't let go? Eli laughed and placed his hand on top of Izuku's hand, tilting his head slightly to say. But you didn't let me go either, Izuku. Izuku looked away, blushing slightly, because she was right. Eli's heart was racing, even though he didn't show it. Izuku, let's continue on our way, Eli. They resumed their journey until they reached the shield house. Izuku had in his pocket the copy of the key that Melissa had given him. He opened the door, and they both entered the house. Eli, since I'm a very good friend, I'll help you. Izuku, okay. After all, I like your company, Eli. He smiled at her. Eli blushed slightly upon seeing that smile, saying, I see, it's good to know that you like my company. I say the same about you too, she said somewhat sadly. They both went up to the room Izuku was staying in, and upon entering Eli could see that his suitcases were already on the bed. Eli, I see you've already started preparing your things. Izuku, I was doing it before we went to the lab. But I couldn't finish, he said while scratching the back of his head while laughing. Eli, well, let's not waste time trying to get all this sorted out, so we can enjoy the rest of the day walking around the island. After all, we will leave tomorrow. Izuku, you have a bull. Eli, okay, let's get to work, buddy, she said as she raised her hand for Izuku to bump his palm into hers. Izuku looked at her and started laughing, saying, Understood, companion. He responded by high-fiving her palm. Izuku left his phone on the nightstand in the room and began to pack his things. Eli could see that on the bed there was a black sweatshirt. On the chest it had the phrase Plus Ultra. She smiled. Izuku was turning his back on her when he heard the brown-haired girl speak to him. He turned around to see an image that seemed very tempting to him. Eli had put on that jumpsuit that was a little big on him. The sleeves of it completely covered Eli's hands. She smiled at him and said, Hey Izuku. Plus Ultra. She could see how Izuku began to bleed from his nose. Eli, huh? Izuku. She quickly took a handkerchief out of her pocket and placed it on the freckled boy's nose. Izuku, thanks Eli, she said while looking to the side with her cheeks blushing. While I was thinking, she looks so cute. Why am I thinking about these things? What is this warm feeling in my chest? It's so confusing. This is like that feeling I want to erase. Eli just started laughing, saying, Your face is very red. Is it because of my Izuku? Izuku, oh I. Well. I think that sweatshirt looks great on you. It makes you look prettier, Eli. Eli kissed him on the cheek, saying, Thank you, your words bring joy to my heart. Well, let's continue arranging, he said while having a slight smile. Izuku, I'll go get a glass of water. I'll be back in a few minutes. Eli, okay. Leave this task to me. Izuku, I'll leave for a few minutes, I won't be long, he said as he left the room. Eli just gave a slight smile, saying, At least he forgot what was making him sad. I will try my best to make sure he is not sad. Izuku, as he walked down the stairs, glanced sideways at a certain brunette standing next to him. That dark-haired girl looked at him with a slight smile, saying, You look cute, blushing boy. At least that girl is making you forget everything that happened. Izuku, please Nana, don't bring up the wounds of the past. Nana, I wholeheartedly support Eli, I'm sure she can heal you. Izuku, she's just a friend, Nana. For now I just want to forget these feelings. Nana, I know, but I advise you not to close the doors of your heart, give it one more chance. Who knows, maybe it's the best decision you can make. While Eli was arranging some things, she saw Izuku's phone start to vibrate. She approached and saw that they were calling him. She could see how a name was said on the screen. Kendo-san. Eli grabbed the phone, saying, Hello? Chapter 10. Can I pretend you don't exist? Minutes before. Kendo was in her room. She was holding in her hands the scarf she had given to that green-haired friend, that freckled boy with emerald eyes to whom she never got to tell her feelings. She looked at her phone on her nightstand, and with a little hope she picked it up and searched for a certain name among her contacts. I had nothing to lose by scoring once more. If I had already lost everything, honestly you can't lose anything when you have nothing to lose. The phrase, "answer me," was worthless at that moment, because if she hadn't heard him when he tried to talk to her, why would he have to listen to her now? But her eyes opened slightly when she heard her call being answered. Her eyes watered with the happiness of knowing that the green-haired man had answered her call. And when she was about to speak she heard a female voice on the other end. That simple, "hello," made all that happiness disappear in a matter of seconds. A lump formed in his throat due to his emotions. Kendo didn't know what to say. His hands were shaking slightly. In that second several questions began to form in his mind regarding that female voice that answered the call. Who was that girl behind the phone? Why hadn't Izuku responded? What was the relationship between them? Although she knew better than anyone that she had no right to think any of that, she still couldn't help it. Just thinking about it caused a sharp pain in her chest, as if someone were stabbing her with a dagger and pressing down on her very hard. Kendo, I. On the other end of the call, Eli had an eyebrow raised, somewhat confused at not receiving a clear answer, which would say, "Hello, can you hear me? You're looking for Izuku-kun, right?" At that question Kendo remained silent. He wanted to say, yes, but his voice would not come out of his mouth. Eli, wait a moment, I'll put you through to him. Kendo, no ESP. The brown-haired girl left the room to give her phone to Izuku. The green-haired boy was in the kitchen drinking a glass of water. While Nana was at his side looking at him with a slight smile, Izuku was hugged from behind by a certain brown-haired girl. He spat out the water he was drinking because of the surprise that hug caused him. Eli, Izuku-kun, you have to call, take it. I took care of you. Izuku grabbed his phone seeing the name of the person who was calling him. Eli, I'll let you talk quietly. I'll go to the room to continue arranging. That brown-haired girl gave him a slight smile and left the kitchen. Izuku looked at his phone and endless memories with that orange-haired girl were present. In seconds, his eyes could reflect great sadness as he remembered again those events that had happened only days ago. Nana shook her hair saying, "You want to leave the past behind, right? So to do that you have to face it head on. Otherwise you won't be able to move forward. Besides, you are not like those who hurt you and you know it. Don't be what they make you, boy." She showed him a sincere and warm smile. Izuku sighed lightly saying, "Thanks, Nana." He put his phone to his ear saying, "What do you need from my class B president?" Kendo, upon hearing the green-haired man's voice again, couldn't help but shed a couple of tears, but upon hearing how he had addressed her, she highlighted the indifference with which he had responded to her. Kendo, Izuku. Izuku, why are you calling me by my name? As far as I remember, we are not that close, or are we? Kendo, I'm sorry, Midoriya-san. Izuku, why did you call me? Why do you want to talk to me now? Give me one reason not to hang up right now. If it weren't for Eli answering the call, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. Give me a reason to listen to you, Madam President. Have you noticed my absence yet? Or maybe I'm no longer invisible to you?" he asked with his voice breaking. Kendo wanted to tell him so many things, but he didn't know where to start, especially with those cold words coming from that freckled boy. Izuku, not receiving an answer, would say, "See you later." Kendo, there are so many things I want to tell you that I don't know where to start. I know better than anyone that you don't want to listen to me, and I don't blame you. I didn't want to listen to you when you tried to talk to me. Why would you want to listen to me now? She was crying while talking, and Izuku could notice it through his phone. Kendo, I know you hate me right now and you don't want to talk to me, but if it's not too much, please. Izuku, can I pretend you don't exist now? Can I do the same thing you did to me? If I do, you'll know how I felt when someone who was important to me told it. Kendo remained silent as she continued to cry. Izuku, but it's a shame, isn't it? It's a shame I can't do it because no matter how damaged I am, I will always continue to be kind to those who hurt me the most. It's stupid, right? I should forget those people and not talk to them anymore, but I just can't, because I don't want to be one of them. Hate you? I have no reason to hate you. I just understood why it's bad to get used to someone. And I got used to you, so much that when you acted like I didn't exist it hurt as if I was being stabbed over and over again. I thought you would be different from her, but in the end you ended up hurting me just like she did. For a moment I thought that maybe you could put the pieces of my broken heart back together. I wanted with all my might to believe that I could have something more than a friendship with you, but I understood that that couldn't be between us. Kendo, his voice breaking, replied, I also wanted to have more than just a friendship with you, Izuku, she said while wiping away the tears that fell from her cheeks. Izuku simply remained silent at those words from that orange-haired girl. They both remained silent for a couple of minutes, but Kendo's sobs could be heard. The orange-haired girl, while she had the green-haired boy's scarf wrapped around her neck, would say, I would like to start our relationship again, please. Izuku, you want to start from scratch, you say? Kendo, why yes. Izuku, I wish it were that easy, but we both know that you can never start from scratch when there was already a first time. Itsuka Kendo, I've already forgiven you, that's all I can do for now, just forgive you, because I can't trust you anymore. Much less Yaoyorozu-san. Goodbye, Kendo-san, perhaps if we see each other again we can talk better. See you soon. After saying that, the green-haired man hung up the call, leaving the orange-haired girl with tears on her cheeks. She drew her knees up to her chest, burying her head in them and beginning to cry non-stop. Izuku put away his phone saying, I've already taken the first step to leave everything behind, I hope I do it well. He walked past Nana heading towards his room to help the brunette. When he arrived, he could see Eli sitting on the bed folding some of the green-haired boy's clothes. Eli had a slight smile. Izuku, I'm back, partner, he said with a slight smile. Eli looked up to look at him in his eyes saying, Even though it was only a couple of minutes, I miss you so much. She stood up and hugged him, asking, Are you okay? Eli felt Izuku lightly hold her against him, saying, If you are by my side I will always be fine. The brown-haired girl just hid her head on the green-haired boy's right shoulder, blushing tenderly. He would say, And if you are by my side I will be very happy, she said while placing her hands on the freckled man's chest, lightly grabbing his shirt. Izuku, like the brown-haired girl, was blushing, both of them separated very embarrassed, saying, Gee good, we better get everything settled out quickly. They both took a piece of clothing and folded it, but they were so close to each other that they could feel the touch of each other's arms. Eli only had a slight smile with his cheeks blushing. Without realizing their destinies he had begun to feel a faint feeling for each other, and although he was small, little by little he was growing. Chapter 11, A Kiss for a Compliment. After finishing arranging everything, the two friends sat on the bed taking a short break. Eli stretched out his two arms, saying, Feel we finally finished. Now everything is ready for us to leave tomorrow, friend, he said as he extended his fist for her to bump into hers. Izuku looked at her for a few brief seconds, so he just smiled slightly, saying, I can't wait to go with you, mate. Those words echoed in the mind of the brown-haired girl, who only gave a slight smile to say, Fufufu, I will accept your compliment. Izuku just let out a small laugh, saying, What's up with that attitude now? Eli just let out a little laugh to say, I don't know, I just couldn't help but want to say that. They both just stared at each other with a slight smile. Eli tucked a strand of her hair behind her right ear as she got a little closer to the freckled boy's face. Izuku could notice how there was a small blush on Eli's face. Clearly he was no exception, as he also blushed a little. The words Nana had told her minutes ago passed through her mind. But I advise you not to close the doors of your heart, give it one more chance, Izuku in his thoughts would say. Maybe just one more try and maybe I can be happy. He also slowly approached Eli, and being so close to the other Eli gave him a small kiss on his cheeks very, very close to his lips. She quickly stood up and, removing red, said, That kiss W was for giving me that compliment. Izuku just looked at her a little embarrassed since he thought she was going to give him that on her lips. Eli, I am going to go get some air, I'll be back in a few minutes. After saying that, she left the room, closing the door and leaning against it, covering her face, which was completely red from shame. Eli, why did I back out at the L last second? If I had kissed him, would things between him and I become awkward? My heart feels like it will jump out of my chest. I really wanted to kiss him. Izuku was still sitting on his bed. Next to him was Nana, who looked at him with a slight smile, and before she could say anything Izuku would say, Please Nana, don't start bothering me. Nana, come on boy, you're not going to deny me the fact that you wanted to kiss her too. It was very cute to see how both of them slowly approached each other to kiss each other. Without a doubt, both of them are tender. Now you know that this girl likes you a lot. Izuku, I think we just got carried away by the moment, I don't think. Nana squeezed his cheeks, saying, Repeat it until you believe it, kid. It's more than obvious that she has feelings for you. You can see it in the way she looks at you, in those hugs she gives you, and in how safe she feels when she's by your side. Plus, you're going to go to the same academy she goes to and you'll spend more time together. It will definitely be nice to see how their story develops. Izuku looked at her, saying, Apparently you have enough free time to see what's going on in my life. Nana boy, what else could I do? I no longer belong to your world. My essence remained inside the one for all along with the other carriers. So the only thing I can do to not get bored is to see what happens with your life, boy. Come on, are you going to tell me that you don't like my company? He asked as he sat next to him, looking at him with a slight smile. Izuku simply sighed resignedly, saying, I'd better not answer that. Nana, by the way, boy, changing the subject. Izuku could see how Nana's face turned serious. 10 minutes later. We can see how Izuku and Eli were walking through the streets of the island. Both were in total silence since they both had in mind that kiss that had occurred in the room. Nana looked at him sideways and thought that because of her things had become awkward between them. She was about to speak when the green-haired boy said, Eli, well, I couldn't tell you for a while, but oh well. Eli could see how Izuku's face was a little blushing, which she found quite cute. She undoubtedly wanted to take a photo of him to see that tender expression that she liked to see so much. Izuku, well, the kiss you gave me, I really liked it. Eli just lowered her gaze, playing with her hands since she didn't want him to see her blush, she would say. I see, then maybe later I'll give you more kisses. Izuku, I would like that very much. They couldn't look at each other, but they continued walking with a slight smile that showed their happiness. After several minutes they arrived at a small square where they sat for a while. Eli, are you nervous about tomorrow's trip? Izuku, to tell the truth, just a little. Eli, I am very happy, because we will be together. And that makes me happy. She rested her head on the freckled boy's shoulders in a small, warm silence. Eli could simply be herself with Izuku. Her personality had always been that of a person who liked to show her affection with hugs. She really was a kind person with a heart that already had an owner, even if that person didn't know it. They both stared at the sky while enjoying each other's company and warmth. At one point Izuku could feel Eli slide a little from his shoulder. He looked at her out of the corner of his eye, noticing how the brown-haired girl had fallen asleep. Izuku carefully rested her head on his lap so she could rest peacefully. Chapter 12, The Successor of the Strongest. Izuku looked out the plane window as All Might, David, and Melissa stood outside with their hands raised in a warm farewell. All Might gave a slight smile to his disciple, who raised his fist and then pointed at him. Izuku understood that meaning, so he very determinedly nodded his head. Eli was sitting next to her. The brown-haired girl was also looking at them through the window with a slight smile, while the plane slowly began to take off towards North America, the place where a new chapter would begin in the lives of both young people. Izuku just looked at him with nostalgia. knowing that from that moment on he was leaving the past behind. He could feel Eli's warm hands resting on his as he looked at him with a slight smile. Eli, everything would be okay, Izuku. I will be with you at all times, I promise. Izuku returned that kindness with a slight smile, saying, Thanks, Eli. Eli, by the way, Dr. David informed me that you made changes to your hero suit at the last minute. What is the reason for that? She asked somewhat curiously. Izuku, well, let's say the reason is to represent everything that happens to get here. Also, I think this improvement will give a new, more mature touch to my personality as a hero. Eli, I understand. I can't wait to see you in the suit. Izuku, you'll see soon enough. Melissa also added an improvement that will allow me to carry it at all times. I am certainly very happy to have met them. They were very kind to me. You have been one too, Eli. Eli just closed his eyes and very happily replied. Well, after all, we're friends, aren't we? And who knows, maybe we'll end up being closer in the future. I'd really like that idea, he answered the last part in a low voice. Izuku could notice how there was a slight blush on his partner's cheeks. He just looked away as he thought she really looked beautiful with that blush. After 3 hours, the two young men landed at the back of a huge academy. Izuku looked out the window quite excited, since if the UA was big, this academy was twice the size of the UA. He could see how an imposing platform emerged from the ground as the plane landed safely. Izuku certainly couldn't believe what he was seeing, as it was simply magnificent. The doors of the plane slowly opened. Eli stood up, saying, Well, we arrived at our destination, it's time to get off, Izuku. Izuku, oh yeah, it's okay. They both went down, and when they got off, the first thing they found was a group of students who had a sign that said, Welcome Midoriya Izuku. Izuku, quite surprised, would say, Oh, what's wrong? Did they know I was coming? Eli looked at the group of young people with a slight smile, since they were his companions. The group approached the couple and overshadowed the green-haired boy, since more than one of them was curious to meet the student that the number one hero had recommended. A dark-haired boy with golden streaks stood face to face with Izuku, being taller than him by 12 centimeters. He looked at him straight in the eyes and with a somewhat mocking smile said, So you are the much-acclaimed Izuku Midoriya? At first glance you seem like a normal, ordinary person. I don't understand why Miss Elizabeth is so attentive to you. Let it be clear that I do not recognize you as a comrade. After saying that, he turned around to leave the place. A beautiful orange-haired girl approached Izuku, saying, Don't pay attention to him, Midoriya-san. He's an idiot most of the time. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Alice Necron. I hope we can be very good friends, she said with a big smile and a warm and captivating personality. Izuku, oh yeah, I say the same, Miss Alice. In this way, everyone else introduced themselves respectfully to the freckled man, and he could see that everyone else was very kind to him. Izuku was walking with everyone else into the academy when they stopped dead when they saw 3 people walking towards them. Eli recognized them immediately, and everyone stood to attention and welcomed the one leading the trio with great respect. Izuku met blue eyes that shined too much. That person had dark skin and short platinum-colored hair. But having her in front of him, Izuku could feel an enormous pressure on his body. That beautiful girl had about 7 stars on her student suit. Eli, what do we owe your presence to? Student Council President. That girl would say, as the president wanted to welcome the new student. I was also quite curious to meet the student that All Might himself recommended. The president was 1 meter 92 centimeters tall, making his workshop than the freckled man. Nice to meet you, Midoriya Izuku. I introduced myself. I am the Student Council President Naomi Mizuno, rank 7. But only you will be able to call me Mizu or Naomi as you feel most comfortable. This statement caught the attention of all those present, including his 2 companions. Naomi, I have high expectations for you, boy. Feel free to ask me anything, and of course you can come see me whenever you like. I can give you advice to improve with the use of your gift, or if you prefer we can train together. He gave her a slight smile and then turned around saying, I hope you enjoy your stay at the Heroes of Tomorrow Academy. After saying that, she walked away from the group with firm steps that were taken throughout the place. Eli just stared at her quite seriously. Izuku, she is very impressive, her presence imposed respect and intimidation. It's like that time I was face to face with Mirio-senpai. One of his companions put his hand on his shoulder saying, "Hey comrade, you are certainly an incredible person for the president to say such words to you," Izuku would say with some sadness. "Oh no, I don't think he's anyone special." This boy had purple hair, and his name was Ethan. "Ethan, gosh, you're very modest, Midoriya. I hope we can be good friends." He looked at Eli and said, "Miss Eli, do you think I should take Midoriya to the director? He must be waiting for him. The others will help her with our new friend's luggage." Eli, "Okay. I'll catch up with you in a few minutes." Izuku began to walk alongside Ethan as he told him several things about the academy. In one part of that academy, two boys were gathered. One of them was the one who did not recognize Izuku as a classmate. The other young man was a boy with platinum hair and blue eyes. He would say, "And tell me, what do you think of him, Azair?" "Azair, he seems like an ordinary person, but he doesn't seem strong. I don't understand how someone like him was recommended by the great All Might." "Are you going to see it, Aiden?" "Aiden, maybe I'm interested in seeing what he's capable of doing. But no matter what I do, everything always ends the same way. Everything is getting boring. I will defeat him like I did with everyone in the class." "Azair, well, you didn't defeat everyone, you lost against her. Did you forget it?" Aiden just walked until he reached the window in that hallway, seeing through it a beautiful brunette walking with some of her same class. "Aiden, I will never forget the day I lost to you, Elizabeth." "Azair, after all, there is a reason she is considered to be the one to replace President Naomi Mizuno in the future." Chapter 13, The New Sensei. We can see how the hero Deku was wearing his suit that characterized him so much. He was on top of a building. It was nighttime and he was breathing heavily, then several lights illuminated his figure. Izuku could see that there were 3 helicopters in the sky that had him in their sights. A soldier from a voice carrier would say, "Surrender, hero Deku, and we will open fire. We won't let him go after ending the life of the hero All Might." Izuku just closed his eyes and then fell into the void from a great height, while releasing a lot of smoke from his body. Eli woke up agitatedly while breathing heavily. She looked at her hands, noticing how they were shaking a little. His gaze fell on his phone, seeing that it was 2:30 in the morning. Standing up, he grabbed his phone and called the freckled man, who answered a few seconds later, somewhat sleepily. "Izuku, Eli, what's wrong?" he asked with a slight yawn. Eli, upon hearing the green-haired boy's voice, calmed down a little and replied, "Ah, well, the truth is that I can't sleep and I wanted to hear your voice." Izuku sat up in his bed a little more awake. "Eli, sorry if I woke you up, Now I'll let you sleep." "Izuku, I want to keep talking to you, Eli." Eli could feel a warm feeling in his chest at those words. A slight smile formed on his face and he tenderly replied, "I would like that very much, Isa." The two stayed talking on the phone until 4 in the morning, and then said goodbye to each other to get some rest since they would have to attend classes in a couple of hours. The next day, Izuku looked very excitedly at the huge training gym of that academy. This one certainly had his notebook, and was writing down at great speed the skills that his companions had, since they were very impressive skills. Alice had the gift of controlling the earth, manipulating it to take the shape she wanted. In fact, her gift was not limited to just the earth. She could also shape metal, glass, cement, and any other element that was compatible with her gift. Alice was delighted to answer the questions the green-haired boy asked her while writing in her notebook with great excitement. Ethan stood next to Izuku saying, "Midoriya, now I will show you my gift, comrade, here it goes." He began to expel an impressive amount of purple smoke from the tips of his fingers, forming an arc. "Izuku, how cool." "Ethan, you haven't seen everything yet. Pay attention." He looked at one of his companions and said, "Dear Sophie, would you help me show me, Midoriya, how my gift works?" That girl had yellow hair that turned orange at the tips, A big smile was on her face. Sophie, I would be delighted. Shoot whenever you want, Ethan. Ethan, thank you. He aimed his arrow at her and shot, hitting the target. Izuku could see how from one second to the next the previously happy girl was now totally angry. So much so that he grabbed Ethan by the collar of his suit. Ethan looked at Izuku saying, "My gift allows me to control or change the emotional state of others, as long as my arrow hits the target. It also helps me control my emotions, achieving self-control over my body, self-regulation, is what it is called. In a rescue mission, if there are hostages, I can use my gift to calm them down, erasing their fear and panic. I calm them down, and best of all is that my arrows do not cause them any harm, much less pain. It may not be such an amazing and flashy quirk, but I am proud of it. Izuku, you are amazing, Ethan-san, you can definitely help many people." Ethan watched as Izuku wrote things about him in his notebook. He smiled, saying, "You are very kind, Midoriya." He looked at his partner, and his mood returned to normal. "Ethan, by the way, Izuku, thanks to my gift I have had to perfect my aim, so I can't fail, or at least I can't afford to fail. Sophie, believe it or not, Ethan hasn't missed a single shot so far. Well, now it's my turn to show you my gift." A large amount of fire began to emerge from her body, and she began to control it at will. "Izuku, that's it." "Sophie, yep, that's what you're imagining. My quirk is pyrokinesis," she replied with a big smile. "Izuku, you certainly have an amazing gift, Sophie-san." "Sophie, thank you very much, Midoriya." At that point, the teacher who would be in charge of the class entered the gymnasium, and with a light applause and a sweet voice would say, "Good morning, my dear students. I'm happy to see them so animated." Her eyes fell on the green-haired boy, and with great excitement she approached him, saying, "Oh, I see we have a new face in class," he said, starting slightly towards the freckled man who had a noticeable blush since that woman was extremely beautiful. Her eyes were a light blue but stood out a lot, her hair was platinum and at the tips it turned a blue and purple tone, she had beautiful long and elegant eyelashes. She exuded a kindness and charisma that soothed even the pains of the soul. "What is your name?" she asked sweetly. Izuku, somewhat nervous, replied. "Aito Izuku Midoriya sensei." The beautiful girl showed him a slight smile, saying, "Nice to meet you, Midoriya Izuku. I am your practice teacher, Himari Shimizu. I will guide you so that you can act with precision and wisdom during missions and rescues." Izuku gave a slight bow, saying, "I will be in your care, Shimizu-sensei." "Himari, okay, everyone please pay attention. Today we will do a simple exercise to reinforce trust in our colleagues. Well, since there are 21 in total, I want you to form a team of 3 members, so there will be 7 groups in total. Now please choose your partners. You have a total of 4 minutes. So cheer up." After those last words, everyone began to look for their partner. Eli was very happy to go with the freckled boy to form a team with him. But she could see how Sophie and Ethan carried Izuku and moved away from everyone, thus forming their team. "Sophie, Midoriya is ours," she declared proudly. Eli just puffed out her cheeks in a cute pout.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.